Standing in my sister Rachel's living room surrounded by birthday decorations for her 1-year-old son, I watched her pour champagne 3 days after we buried my husband, Marcus. "Blair," she announced to the room full of family, "there's something you need to know. This baby is Marcus's son, and I have his will right here, saying half your house belongs to us." She waved the paper triumphantly while everyone gasped. I gripped my glass tighter, fighting the urge to laugh because she had no idea what I knew. If you had asked me 6 months ago to describe my life, I would have painted you a picture so perfect it belonged in a magazine. Marcus and I had built something beautiful over 12 years of marriage. Every morning I would wake up in our $800,000 colonial house in Westport, Connecticut, to the smell of fresh coffee that Marcus always started brewing at exactly 6:30. He would kiss my forehead before leaving for his job as an investment banker in Manhattan, and I would head to my office where I worked as a marketing director for a Fortune 500 company. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our favorite restaurants where the staff knew our names. On Fridays, Marcus would bring home fresh flowers from the farmer's market near his office, not because it was expected, but because he knew how much I loved having fresh peonies or tulips brightening up our kitchen island. Our friends often said we were relationship goals, and honestly, I believed them. The house itself was our pride and joy. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms with original hardwood floors. We had painstakingly restored ourselves during our first year there. The kitchen had been completely renovated with marble countertops and professional-grade appliances because Marcus loved to cook elaborate Sunday dinners. The backyard stretched out to almost an acre with mature oak trees that provided shade for our summer barbecues. But there was one shadow in our sunshine, though we had learned to live with it. After 3 years of trying naturally, 2 years of fertility treatments, 4 rounds of IVF, and 1 devastating miscarriage, we had finally accepted that children might not be in our cards. The spare bedrooms remained offices and guest rooms instead of nurseries. We had each other, we reasoned, and that was enough. Marcus threw himself into his work with renewed vigor after we stopped treatments. He was gunning for senior partner, often staying late at the office or traveling for client meetings. I supported him completely, knowing how much his career meant to him. We had talked about maybe adopting in a few years, or perhaps getting a dog. The future still seemed bright, just different than we had originally planned. My younger sister Rachel had been there through it all. She was 28 to my 35, married to Brad for 4 years. When she announced her pregnancy last year, I won't lie, it stung. But Marcus and I had attended every baby shower, helped set up the nursery, and celebrated when little Tyler was born. Rachel named me godmother, which felt like a consolation prize I gratefully accepted. 2 weeks before everything changed, I was organizing Marcus's home office while he was on another business trip. He had asked me to file some investment documents, and that's when I found it. A credit card statement I had never seen before in Marcus's name, showing a balance that made my blood run cold. $500,000. The charges were all to casinos in Atlantic City, online gambling sites, and cash advances. My hands shook as I went through more papers, finding statement after statement, debt consolidation letters, even notices from loan sharks. How had I not known we had always been transparent about money? We had a joint financial advisor, for crying out loud. But there it was in black and white, a secret life of gambling that had spiraled completely out of control. I sat on his office floor surrounded by evidence of deception, trying to process what this meant. The man who brought me flowers every Friday, who held my hand through fertility treatments, who slow danced with me in our kitchen just last week, had been hiding a massive addiction that could destroy everything we had built. I didn't confront him immediately. I needed time to think, to understand. I made copies of everything and put the originals back exactly where I found them. When Marcus called that night from his client meeting in Boston, I forced my voice to sound normal, asked about his day, told him I loved him, all while wondering if he was really in Boston or at another casino, digging us deeper into debt. That was Thursday night. By Saturday morning, Marcus was dead, and I was left with questions that would never be answered, or so I thought. because as I stood in my sister's living room 3 days after his funeral, watching her wave that piece of paper claiming half my house, I realized the gambling debt was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus had been hiding far more than I ever imagined, and my sister, my sweet, supportive sister, who had held my hand through infertility and loss, had been right there in the deception with him. The call came at 5:43 on Saturday morning. I remember the exact time because I had been lying awake since 4, my mind churning over those credit card statements. When the phone rang, my first thought was that it was Marcus calling to say he was extending his trip. But the voice on the other end wasn't my husband. It was Officer Patricia Daniels from the New Jersey State Police. Mrs. Blair Sullivan. Her voice was professionally gentle, the kind of tone that immediately tells you something terrible has happened. "I'm afraid there's been an accident. Your husband was involved in a single-vehicle collision on the Garden State Parkway. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but he didn't survive." The words didn't make sense at first. Marcus was supposed to be in Boston. Why would he be on the Garden State Parkway at 3 in the morning? But then the officer mentioned they found his identification and my number as his emergency contact, and the reality crashed into me like a physical blow. I must have made some sound because suddenly I was sitting on the bedroom floor still clutching the phone, while Officer Daniels asked if there was someone who could come be with me. The next hours blurred together. Calling Rachel, who arrived with Brad within 30 minutes. Calling Marcus's parents in Florida, his brother in Seattle, my own parents driving down from Vermont, everyone asking the same question I couldn't answer. What was he doing in New Jersey? It was Detective Raymond Chen who finally provided that answer when he came to the house that afternoon. He was kind but direct. Sitting across from me in the living room, Marcus and I had painted sage green just last spring. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need to inform you that your husband was returning from the Borgata Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City when the accident occurred. According to their records, he had been there since Thursday evening." Atlantic City. Not Boston. The gambling debt suddenly had a face, a location. Detective Chen continued talking about the investigation, how it appeared Marcus had fallen asleep at the wheel, how there were no other vehicles involved, no signs of alcohol or drugs in his system, just exhaustion from 48 hours of straight gambling. But that wasn't the worst revelation. As I went through Marcus's phone, which the police had returned with his other effects, I found things that shattered what was left of my world. Text messages to women I didn't know, using endearments he used to reserve for me. Hotel confirmations for weekend trips he had told me were work conferences. Dating app profiles with recent activity. Photo attachments I immediately deleted, my stomach churning. There were 7 different women over the past 2 years. 7. Each one seemed to think she was special to him. One named Amber was asking when he was going to leave his wife. Another, Jessica, was thanking him for the jewelry he had bought her. Jewelry I now realized was probably purchased with those maxed-out credit cards. The funeral was a blur of condolences and casseroles. I stood there in the black dress Marcus had bought me for our anniversary last year, accepting hugs from people who kept telling me what a wonderful man he had been. His colleagues from the investment firm spoke about his dedication. Our neighbors recalled his charm and generosity. All I could think about was those text messages, those debts, those lies. Rachel was my rock during those 3 days. She handled the funeral arrangements when I couldn't focus, fielded phone calls from relatives, made sure I ate something. She stayed at the house with me that first night, holding me while I sobbed into her shoulder. "You were too good for him anyway," she whispered at one point, and something in her tone made me pull back to look at her face. But her expression was just sympathetic, nothing more. Brad was helpful, too quieter than usual, but handling all the practical matters like Marcus's car insurance claim and starting the paperwork for his life insurance. Though he mentioned there might be complications with the life insurance given the circumstances of the death, apparently there were clauses about risky behavior and potential suicide that the company would investigate. It was while going through Marcus's wallet that I found something strange. A parking stub from a hotel in Stamford dated just a week ago, during a time when he was supposed to be home with the flu. The same hotel where Rachel had her book club meetings. I almost asked her about it, wondering if maybe Marcus had picked something up for her. But then his phone buzzed with another text from one of his women, and I forgot all about it. The voicemail I discovered later that night changed everything. It was in his deleted folder, but not emptied yet. Marcus's voice slurred and agitated, leaving a message for someone named Lawrence. "Lawrence, it's Marcus. I need you to change everything back to Blair before Rachel finds out. She's getting crazy, man. Talking about telling Blair everything if I don't. Just change it all back. The will, everything. I'll deal with Rachel myself." I played it 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each listen. Rachel, my Rachel. What did she have to do with Marcus's will, and who was Lawrence? A search through his contacts showed a Lawrence Hoffman estate attorney, the same attorney who had handled our original wills 5 years ago. Suddenly, Rachel's behavior took on a different cast. Her quick arrival that morning, the way she had handled everything so efficiently, that comment about me being too good for him, and now she was insisting I come to Tyler's first birthday party just 3 days after the funeral. "You need to be around family," she had said. "It'll be good for you to focus on something happy." Standing in my bedroom looking at the black dress I had just hung back in the closet, I made a decision. I would go to that party, because something told me my sister had plans and I needed to know what they were. The gambling debt was bad enough. The affairs were devastating, but the idea that Rachel was somehow involved in this mess, that was a betrayal, I couldn't even begin to process. I just had no idea how deep that betrayal actually went. The morning of Tyler's party, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror trying to make myself look presentable. 3 days of crying had left my eyes puffy and red, and no amount of concealer could hide the exhaustion carved into my face. But Rachel had been insistent, calling me 4 times yesterday to make sure I was coming. "Please, Blair," she had said during the last call. "Everyone's going to be there. Mom and Dad are driving down specially. Aunt Susan and Uncle Richard are coming from Philadelphia. They all want to see you to support you, and Tyler would miss his godmother." Tyler wouldn't miss anything. He was turning one. But I had agreed because something about Rachel's urgency felt off. She had always been persistent, but this was different, almost desperate. Brad picked me up because Rachel insisted I shouldn't drive myself so soon after everything. He seemed unusually tense during the ride, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary and barely making conversation. Brad and I had always gotten along well. He was quiet where Rachel was, vivacious, steady where she was impulsive. But today he could barely look at me. "How are you holding up, Brad?" I finally asked as we stopped at a red light. He startled like I had shouted. "Me, oh, fine, just, party planning stress. Rachel's been intense about everything being perfect." That was an understatement. When we arrived at their house in Fairfield, about 20 minutes from mine, the place looked like a Pinterest board had exploded. Balloon arches in silver and blue, a dessert table that could feed 50 people. Though only about 20 were expected professional photographers already setting up equipment. This was more elaborate than some weddings I had attended. Blair. Mom rushed over the moment I walked in, enveloping me in a hug that smelled like her signature white shoulders perfume. "Oh, sweetheart, how are you? We've been so worried." Dad was right behind her, his usual stoic expression cracking as he pulled me in for an embrace. Behind them, I could see various aunts, uncles, and cousins, all wearing that same expression of sympathetic concern. It was suffocating. But what really caught my attention was how they kept exchanging glances with each other. Aunt Susan would whisper something to Uncle Richard, then they would both look at me and quickly away. Cousin Jennifer started to approach me, then seemed to think better of it and veered toward the kitchen instead. Even Marcus's sister Patricia, who had flown in from Chicago, gave me a strange look before focusing intently on her phone. Rachel appeared in a stunning red dress that seemed too formal for a baby's birthday party, carrying Tyler on her hip. My godson was adorable in a little sailor outfit, babbling happily and reaching for the balloons. When he saw me, He smiled and extended his chubby arms, and I took him automatically. That's when I really looked at him for the first time in weeks. Really looked. And my breath caught. Those eyes. Marcus had unusual green eyes with gold flecks, a trait he had inherited from his grandmother. I had always hoped our children would have those eyes, and now I was staring into them set in Tyler's sweet baby face. "Beautiful, isn't he?" Rachel said softly beside me, and something in her tone made me look at her sharply. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Satisfaction, anticipation. He's growing so fast, already starting to look so much like his father. I handed Tyler back to her more quickly than was probably polite. "Where's Brad? I should thank him for the ride." "Oh, he's around somewhere," Rachel said vaguely, but I noticed her scan the room like she was checking his location. "Why don't you get some food? Melissa made her famous spinach dip." The next hour was torture. I tried to mingle, but conversations kept dying when I approached. Rachel flitted around playing hostess, but always seemed to be watching me. Brad had disappeared entirely, though I spotted his car keys still on the hall table, so he hadn't left. Finally, I escaped to the back patio for some air. The October day was crisp, but sunny, and I stood there trying to make sense of the strange energy inside. That's when Brad appeared beside me, looking over his shoulder like he was checking for surveillance. "Blair, we need to talk," he said quietly, urgently. "But not here. Not now. Rachel can't know." "Brad, what's going on? Everyone's acting strange, and you look like you're about to jump out of your skin." He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the style Rachel had probably spent time perfecting. "I can't. Not yet. But things aren't... Rachel doesn't know that I know about any of it. We need to talk privately away from here. Can you meet me tomorrow, the Starbucks on Post Road, 9 in the morning?" "Know what, Brad, you're scaring me." But before he could answer, Rachel's voice rang out from inside. "Everyone, could you all please come to the living room? I have an announcement." Brad's face went pale. Actually pale, like all the blood had drained away. "Oh God, she's really gonna do it." He grabbed my arm, his fingers pressing too hard. "Blair, whatever happens in there, just remember things aren't always what they seem. And don't sign anything, okay? Promise me you won't sign anything." "Brad, what are you talking about?" But he was already heading inside, and I had no choice but to follow. Everyone was gathering in the living room, champagne glasses appearing from somewhere, though it was barely 2 in the afternoon. Rachel stood in the center, Tyler on her hip, looking like she was about to give a presentation to the board of directors. She waited until everyone was settled, until the murmur of conversation died down. Then she looked directly at me, and I saw it clearly. Triumph. Pure calculated triumph. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate Tyler's first birthday." She began, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "It's been such a blessing having all of you in our lives, supporting us through this journey." People nodded and smiled, raising their glasses. But I noticed Mom gripping Dad's hand tighter, and Aunt Susan had gone very still. "However," Rachel continued, and that single word sent a chill down my spine, "I can't celebrate my son's birthday without being honest about who he is, about who his father is." The room went silent. So silent I could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. Brad stood frozen by the fireplace, his face a mask of misery, and I knew with sudden crystal clarity what was coming. Tyler is Marcus's son. Rachel announced, her voice steady and clear. "My son is your husband's child, Blair, and I have his will right here, saying half your house belongs to us." She pulled out a document from somewhere, holding it up like a trophy. The room erupted in gasps, exclamations, chairs scraping as people shifted uncomfortably. But I just stood there, meeting my sister's triumphant gaze, feeling something unexpected bubble up in my chest. Laughter. Inappropriate, possibly hysterical laughter that I had to physically fight to keep from bursting out. Because Rachel, my calculating, scheming sister, had just played what she thought was her winning card. She had no idea that I had already found Marcus's voicemail to his lawyer. She had no idea what else I had discovered in the last 3 days. And she certainly had no idea that her grand revelation delivered with such dramatic flair to our entire family had just given me exactly what I needed. Evidence, witnesses, and the first real glimpse of just how deep this betrayal went. The silence that followed Rachel's announcement seemed to stretch for hours, though it was probably only seconds. I could feel everyone's eyes on me waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to scream, cry collapse, or throw something. The wronged wife finding out at a baby's birthday party that her deceased husband had fathered a child with her own sister. Rachel stood there still holding Tyler that document clutched in her other hand like a winning lottery ticket. Her red dress suddenly made sense. This wasn't a mother dressing up for her baby's party. This was a woman dressing for victory. Blair. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Is this? Did you know? I finally found my voice surprised at how calm it sounded. No, Mom, I didn't know. I looked around the room at all the shocked faces, though apparently some of you did. The guilty looks that flickered across several faces told me everything. Aunt Susan suddenly found the carpet fascinating. Patricia turned away to fiddle with her purse. Even some of Rachel's friends were avoiding eye contact. How long? I directed the question at the room, but my eyes were on Rachel. How long has this been going on that people knew to keep it from me? Rachel lifted her chin, defiant now that her secret was out. Does it matter? Marcus is gone, Blair. But Tyler is here, and he deserves his inheritance. Half of that house is rightfully his. According to this will, I gestured at the paper she was waving around, dated when exactly 6 months ago. She said it triumphantly like it was proof of something. Marcus knew he had a son and he wanted to provide for him. Brad made a sound from his corner. When everyone looked at him, he muttered something about needing air and headed for the back door. Rachel watched him go with narrowed eyes before turning back to me. I know this is a shock. She continued attempting what probably passed for sympathy in her mind. But Marcus and it wasn't planned. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but sometimes you can't help who you love. Love. The word came out sharper than I intended. Is that what you called it? Mom stepped forward, then ever the peacemaker. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. This isn't the time or place. No, Rachel said quickly. I want everyone to know. I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending. For a year, I've had to act like Tyler was Brad's son when his real father was right there, unable to claim him. Do you know how hard that's been? A laugh escaped me then. Just a small one, but Rachel's face flushed with anger. You think this is funny your husband cheated on you with me? He loved me. He wanted to leave you for me and Tyler, but he was worried about his reputation, his career. That will prove he was finally ready to do right by us. I walked closer to her, noting how several people shifted uncomfortably. Tyler, sensing the tension, began to fuss in her arms. Can I see it? This will that gives you half my house. She hesitated for a moment, then held it out. I took it carefully, making a show of examining it. The letterhead said Hoffman Legal Associates, with Lawrence Hoffman's name at the bottom. The same lawyer from Marcus's voicemail. How convenient. Interesting, I murmured, then looked up at the room. And all of you just accepted this, that Marcus would suddenly change his will to leave half our marital assets to his secret baby. It's not unusual for fathers to provide for their children, Uncle Richard said carefully. He was a retired judge and chose his words precisely, though the circumstances are unfortunate. Unfortunate? I nodded slowly. That's one word for it. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Julia, my best friend since college, who is now a successful estate attorney. That will is fake. I have the real one from 2 weeks ago. On my way. I slipped the phone back without responding, but the knowledge gave me strength. Rachel was still talking, painting a picture of her grand romance with my husband, how they had connected at a family barbecue, how he had pursued her relentlessly, how she had tried to resist for my sake but couldn't deny their chemistry. "He used to come to my book club meetings," she said, and I remembered that parking stub from the Stamford Hotel. "We would talk for hours about everything. Things he said he couldn't talk to you about. Your obsession with having a baby, the pressure you put on him, the way you made him feel like a failure." Each word was calculated to hurt, to shift the blame onto me. Marcus had felt trapped in our marriage. I had driven him away with my neediness. If only I had been a better wife, he wouldn't have needed to seek comfort in my sister's arms. "And when did you find out you were pregnant?" I asked, genuinely curious about the timeline. 2 months after we started seeing each other. Marcus was thrilled. He said it was a sign that we were meant to be together, that God had given us what you never could. Several people gasped at the cruelty of that statement. Even some of Rachel's supporters looked uncomfortable, but she seemed oblivious, lost in her own narrative. "He bought a condo in Stamford," she continued, "for us, so we could be together without sneaking around. He was going to ask you for a divorce after the holidays. He didn't want to ruin Christmas." "How thoughtful of him," I said dryly. Mom had tears running down her face. "Rachel, how could you, your own sister—" Rachel's defiant mask cracked for just a moment. "You always took her side. Always. Blair, the perfect daughter with her perfect marriage and perfect house. Do you know what it was like growing up in her shadow, and then Marcus saw me? Really saw me. Not as Blair's little sister, but as Rachel. So you decided to sleep with my husband and have his baby. It wasn't like that." She was getting agitated now, Tyler picking up on her mood and starting to cry in earnest. "We fell in love, real love. Not the comfortable routine you two had, but passion, fire. He said being with me made him feel alive again." I thought about those credit card statements, the multiple women in his phone, the gambling addiction that was drowning him in debt. Yes, Marcus had certainly been seeking ways to feel alive. "And this will," I said, holding up the document. "He just happened to change it without telling me, without using our usual attorney. 6 months ago, right around the time Tyler was born. He didn't want to hurt you unnecessarily. He was planning to tell you everything when the time was right. But the time was never right, was it? So now 3 days after his funeral, you decided the time was right to make this announcement at a baby's birthday party." "I wanted family here for support," she said, but her voice was less certain now. "Who support mine or yours." Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. Brad, who had reappeared at some point, practically ran to answer it. Julia walked in looking like the legal warrior she was in her power suit, despite it being Saturday. She took in the scene, the tension, Tyler crying in Rachel's arms, and me standing there holding what she immediately recognized as a legal document. "Sorry I'm late to the party," she said smoothly, "though it seems like I'm just in time for the interesting part." Rachel's face went through several expressions, confusion, recognition, and then something like fear. "Who invited you?" "I did," I said calmly. "Julia, this is the will Rachel says Marcus signed 6 months ago. Would you mind taking a look?" Julia took the document, her expression professionally neutral as she examined it. But I saw the slight narrowing of her eyes, the tiny shake of her head. When she looked up, her smile was sharp. "Well, this is interesting," she said. "Very interesting indeed." And suddenly, the triumphant atmosphere Rachel had tried to create shifted. The power dynamics in the room realigned, because while Rachel had thought she was making a winning play, she'd actually just exposed herself in front of 20 witnesses. The party was over, but the real drama was just beginning. The Starbucks on Post Road was busy for a Sunday morning, which was probably why Brad had chosen it. Easy to blend into the crowd of people grabbing their weekend caffeine fix. I arrived at 8:55, ordered a black coffee I didn't want, and found a corner table where I could watch the door. Brad walked in at exactly 9, looking like he hadn't slept. His usual neat appearance was disheveled stubble covering his jaw, his polo shirt wrinkled. He ordered quickly and slid into the chair across from me, glancing around nervously. "Thank you for coming." He started, then seemed to lose his words, staring into his coffee cup like it might provide a script. "Brad, what's going on? Yesterday you looked like you were going to be sick during Rachel's announcement." He laughed, but it was bitter hollow. 8 months. I've known for 8 months and I've had to pretend everything was fine. Had to smile and play happy families while my wife was sneaking around with your husband. Had to look at that baby every day knowing he might not be mine. The pain in his voice was raw, and I found myself reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Tell me everything." "It was February," he began. Tyler was about 4 months old. Rachel said she was going to her book club meeting in Stamford. She'd been going every week, sometimes twice. But that night, Tyler was sick. Just a cold, but he was fussy, wouldn't sleep. I called her to come home, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He paused, taking a shaky sip of coffee. I remembered she'd mentioned which hotel they met at, so I bundled Tyler up and drove there, thinking maybe her phone had died. The front desk wouldn't tell me anything, but as I was leaving, I saw them in the lobby bar. Rachel and Marcus, the way they were sitting leaning into each other, her hand on his thigh. It wasn't a book club. "What did you do?" "Nothing." The self-disgust in that single word was palpable. I went home, put Tyler to bed, and pretended to be asleep when she came home at midnight smelling like Marcus's cologne. I told myself I was imagining things, that they were just friends, that I was being paranoid. But paranoia gave way to investigation. Brad had installed a tracking app on Rachel's phone ostensibly for safety. He'd started checking credit card statements, noting charges at restaurants when she was supposedly at yoga. He'd found receipts for lingerie she never wore for him, hotel charges on days she claimed to be shopping with friends. "I became someone I didn't recognize," he admitted. Checking her texts while she showered, driving by that hotel, following her once to a lunch meeting that turned out to be exactly what she said it was. I was going crazy. "Why didn't you confront her?" "I almost did a dozen times, but then I'd look at Tyler and I'd wonder." The timeline blare. She got pregnant so fast after our wedding. We'd been trying for months before that with no luck. Then suddenly, right after your 4th of July barbecue, she's pregnant. My 4th of July barbecue, where Marcus had spent half the night manning the grill and the other half nowhere to be found. I'd assumed he was socializing, being his charming self with our guests. Now I wondered which dark corner of my home he'd been defiling with my sister. "So I did something I'm not proud of," Brad continued. "I took one of Tyler's pacifiers and sent it to a DNA testing company, compared it to my sample." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across to me. "The results came yesterday morning right before the party." I opened it with trembling fingers, though I already knew what it would say. The clinical language couldn't soften the blow. Probability of paternity, 0%. "Tyler's not yours." "Not mine." Brad's voice cracked. "I've raised him for a year, changed his diapers, walked him through colics, sang him to sleep. He says Dada to me, and he's not even mine." The coffee shop noise faded as I processed this. Rachel's cruelty was even deeper than I'd imagined. She'd let Brad believe he was a father bond with a child plan, a future, all while knowing the truth. "But here's the thing," Brad said, leaning forward. "I don't think Tyler is Marcus's either." I nearly dropped my cup. "What?" Rachel was seeing 3 men that I know of. Marcus, obviously, but also her personal trainer, Jake Morrison. Young guy, maybe 25, exactly her type, before she decided she wanted the suburban family life with me. And there was someone else, but I never figured out who. Just knew there were nights she wasn't with Marcus or at home, and Jake posts his entire life on Instagram, so I know it wasn't him. 3 men. I felt sick. She was juggling 3 men plus you. At least. Rachel's always been. She needs attention, validation. 1 man was never enough. Even when we were dating, I caught her flirting, but I thought marriage would change things. I was an idiot. We both were. Brad pulled out his phone, scrolling through screenshots he'd saved. Text messages between Rachel and someone saved as book club president, who was clearly Marcus. Plans to meet complaints about having to go home to boring Brad. Discussions about Tyler that made it clear she'd told Marcus he was the father. Look at this one, he said, showing me a text from Rachel to Marcus dated 3 weeks ago. If you don't change your will like you promised, I'll tell Blair everything. Tyler deserves his inheritance, and I deserve more than sneaking around. I'm tired of waiting. There it was, blackmail in digital black and white. My sister had been blackmailing my husband. The will she'd waved around yesterday wasn't a gesture of love from Marcus to his child. It was the result of extortion. There's more, Brad said quietly. The night Marcus died, Rachel wasn't home. She said she was at an emergency book club meeting because someone was moving away, but I checked. There was no meeting. You think she was with him in Atlantic City? I know she was. I have a friend who works security at the Borgata. I asked him to check the footage. Didn't tell him why, just said I was worried my wife might be gambling. He confirmed she was there. Arrived Thursday afternoon, was seen with Marcus multiple times, left Friday night around 11, 4 hours before Marcus crashed. The implications hung heavy between us. Rachel had been at the casino. She'd left before the accident, and Marcus had been trying to get his lawyer to change everything back to my name. We need to take this to the police, I said. With what proof of an affair, that's not illegal. Even the blackmail texts, a lawyer would argue it was just relationship drama, and the casino footage just shows she was there, not that she did anything wrong. But combined with everything else, I've been documenting everything for months, Brad said, originally for divorce proceedings. But now, Blair, I think your sister is more dangerous than either of us realized, and I think she's not done yet. As if to punctuate his words, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. We need to talk about the house transfer. Can you come by this afternoon, just us sisters? I showed Brad the message. His face went pale again. Don't go alone. Something's not right. The way she was acting after the party yesterday after your lawyer friend showed up. She's planning something. What about Tyler if he's not yours and not Marcus's? I've been trying to figure out who the father is. For Tyler's sake, he deserves to know eventually. And honestly, whoever it is might be the key to stopping whatever Rachel's planning next. We sat there for another hour comparing notes, building a timeline. Rachel's affairs had been going on for at least 18 months. The gambling connection ran deeper than just being at the casino. She'd introduced Marcus to some high-stakes poker games through Jake, who apparently had connections. The fake will was just the latest in a pattern of deception and manipulation. I loved her, Brad said as we prepared to leave. Despite everything, I loved her. Maybe I still do, but the Rachel I married never existed. She's been playing a role our entire relationship. I know the feeling, I said, thinking of Marcus. The question is, what do we do now? We protect ourselves, and we find out who Tyler's real father is. Because I have a feeling when that truth comes out, Rachel's whole house of cards is going to collapse. Brad was right about one thing. Rachel wasn't done. But what neither of us realized was that she'd been recording our entire coffee shop conversation through an app on Brad's phone. And by the time I got home, she'd already started spinning the narrative to make us the villains in her twisted story. Monday morning arrived with an official-looking envelope slid under my front door. The return address was Hoffman Legal Associates, the same firm that had allegedly prepared Marcus's will. Inside was a formal notice of claim against the estate demanding immediate transfer of 50% ownership of the house to Tyler Marcus Sullivan, biological son and rightful heir of the deceased. They'd given him Marcus's last name. The audacity of it made my hands shake. Julia arrived within an hour of my call, looking every inch the formidable attorney in her charcoal suit. She sat up at my dining room table, legal pad at ready reading glasses perched on her nose as she examined the documents Rachel had filed. First things first, she said, pulling out a thick folder. This is Marcus's actual will executed 2 weeks before his death at my firm. He came to me specifically because he said he needed someone he could trust. I read through it, my throat tightening. Everything was left to me as it had always been. but there was a handwritten note attached in Marcus's messy scrawl. "Julia, if anything happens to me, please make sure Blair knows I was trying to fix things. I got in too deep, but I never meant for it to go this far. Take care of her." "He knew he was in trouble," Julia said gently. "He didn't give me specifics, but he was scared. Said he'd made some terrible mistakes and people were pressuring him. Rachel was blackmailing him." "I figured as much. The fake will she's presenting has several issues. First, Lawrence Hoffman hasn't practiced estate law in 3 years. He was disbarred for fraud and is currently serving time for embezzlement. Someone's using his old letterhead and forged signature." "Can we prove it's fake?" "Already done. I contacted the State Bar Association this morning. They confirmed Hoffman's status and said they'd investigate who's fraudulently using his credentials. I also had a handwriting expert examine the signatures. Marcus's is close, but not perfect. Whoever forged it was good, but not good enough." The relief was overwhelming, but Julia wasn't finished. "Here's the interesting part. I pulled the filing documents for Rachel's claim. She didn't use a real lawyer. The notarization is fake too. The notary number belongs to someone who died 2 years ago. She's committing fraud. Multiple counts of it. But Blair, there's something else you need to know. I did some digging into Marcus's finances over the weekend. The gambling debts are worse than you thought." She showed me a complete financial picture that made my stomach drop. $700,000 in total debt. Second mortgages I didn't know about. Business loans taken against his partnership that his firm was now investigating. Credit lines opened using our joint assets as collateral. How is this possible? We had financial advisors, accountants. He hid it well. Multiple banks, different states, some offshore accounts. But here's what's relevant to Rachel's claim. Even if her will was legitimate, which it's not, there might not be anything left to inherit once creditors get involved. "You mean we could lose the house anyway?" "Not if we're smart. The house is in both your names, but you can prove your income contributed to the payments. We can protect your portion. Marcus's debts were his, a loan you didn't sign for them. But it's going to be a fight." My phone rang, Rachel's name on the screen. Julia nodded and I put it on speaker. "Blair, did you get the legal notice? I tried to do this nicely at the party, but you had to bring your attack dog lawyer. Now we do it the hard way." "Rachel, we both know that will is fake." Silence for a moment. Then her voice harder now. "Prove it. You think you're so smart, always have. But I've got documentation dates, photos of Marcus with Tyler. A judge will see a grieving widow trying to deny her nephew his rightful inheritance." "And what about Brad? Does he know you're claiming Tyler is Marcus's?" "Brad's being dramatic. He'll come around once he realizes I'm going to win. Men always do. Marcus did. He was so easy to manipulate once I figured out his weaknesses. The gambling, the need for excitement. I introduced him to that world you know, through Jake." Julia's eyes widened. She grabbed her legal pad, scribbling notes. "You got Marcus involved in gambling." Rachel laughed. "Oh, please, like he needed much encouragement. Jake had connections to some high-stakes games. Invitation only very exclusive. Marcus loved feeling like a big shot. Of course he wasn't very good at it. Lost more than he won. That's when I suggested he might want to make provisions for his son's future. You know, before he lost everything." "So you admit to blackmailing him." "I admit to looking out for my child. Something you couldn't give Marcus, by the way." "How did it feel, Blair? Knowing you were failing at the one thing women are supposed to be able to do, while I gave him a son without even trying." Julia was writing furiously. Every word was evidence. "Actually, Rachel, there's something you should know. Brad had Tyler's DNA tested." The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Then very quietly, "You're lying. He's not Marcus's son and he's not Brad's. So who's the father, Rachel Jake? Or was there someone else?" "You bitter, barren witch. You can't stand that I have what you never could. That Marcus loved me more. That I won." "Did you win, though? Because from where I'm sitting, you're a single mother with a fake will trying to steal from your widowed sister. How's that for winning?" She hung up. Julia leaned back, a satisfied smile on her face. That was perfect. She admitted to the gambling connection, the manipulation, and didn't deny the DNA issue. I recorded the whole thing legally, of course. One-party consent state. But Rachel wasn't done. Within 2 hours, she'd filed additional documents with the probate court. Emergency motions claiming I was hiding assets, that I was mentally unstable from grief, that I'd threatened her and Tyler. She'd included affidavits from 3 people I'd never heard of, swearing they'd witnessed Marcus and Rachel together, that he'd talked about leaving me, that I'd known about the affair, and threatened violence. "She's throwing everything at the wall," Julia said, reading through the stack. "This is what desperate looks like." That afternoon, Julia filed our countersuit. Fraud, forgery, extortion, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We included Brad's evidence, the fake will analysis, the gambling connection, and Rachel's recorded admissions. But the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. As I was gathering documents from Marcus's office, I found a hidden folder behind the filing cabinet. Inside was a journal leather-bound and filled with Marcus's handwriting. The entries went back 2 years, chronicling his descent into gambling addiction, his affairs, and crucially his relationship with Rachel. But it wasn't what Rachel had claimed. According to Marcus, she had pursued him relentlessly, showed up at his office, threatened to tell me about the gambling if he didn't sleep with her. The first time had been at that 4th of July barbecue when she'd cornered him in the pool house. She said she'd always wanted what Blair had one entry read, that she deserved the nice house, the successful husband, the life. She said if I didn't give her what she wanted, she'd destroy everything. I was weak. I gave in. I hate myself for it. But the most damning entry was from 6 months ago. Rachel claims she's pregnant with my child, but the dates don't add up. We used protection every time because I was terrified of this happening. She says it failed, but I don't believe her. She's trying to baby trap me, demanding I change my will, leave Blair, marry her. She doesn't know I had a vasectomy years ago when Blair and I were going through IVF. The doctor said it was reversible if we ever wanted to try again, but I never told anyone, not even Blair. Too ashamed. But it means Tyler can't be mine. Biologically impossible. Rachel's lying about everything, and I don't know how to stop her. A vasectomy. My husband had gotten a vasectomy without telling me while I was putting my body through hell trying to have his baby. The betrayal was breathtaking, but it was also the proof we needed. I called Julia immediately. We need to subpoena Marcus's medical records. Already on it, she said. This changes everything. If we can prove Marcus couldn't father children, Rachel's entire case collapses. And these journal entries show a pattern of extortion and sexual coercion. This isn't just a civil matter anymore, Blair. This is criminal. The legal battle was officially underway, but Rachel had one more card to play, and none of us saw it coming. Tuesday morning brought chaos. I woke up to 37 missed calls, twice as many text messages, and my front lawn covered in news vans. Apparently, Rachel had given an exclusive interview to a local morning show, painting herself as the victim of a cruel sister-in-law trying to steal her baby's inheritance. She actually went on television. Julia's voice was incredulous over the phone. "Blair, stay inside. Don't answer the door. Don't talk to anyone. I'm on my way." But I'd already made the mistake of checking social media. The clip was everywhere. Rachel in a demure black dress holding Tyler tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face as she told her version of events. How she and Marcus had fallen deeply in love. How I'd known about the affair but refused to give him a divorce. How now I was using my wealth and connections to deny a baby his birthright. She was good, I had to give her that. Every word calculated to generate sympathy. Tyler was perfectly on cue, adorable in his little outfit, reaching for his mother's face when she cried. The comments were brutal. I was the barren, bitter wife. The evil aunt stealing from a baby. The cold, rich woman persecuting her own sister. Julia arrived with Brad in tow. He looked even worse than he had at the coffee shop, hollow-eyed and jumpy. "She kicked me out," he said without preamble. Changed the locks while I was at work yesterday. Says she won't let me near Tyler until I come to my senses and support her claim. Can she do that? Technically, the house is in both our names, and Tyler, legally, I'm still his father. My name's on the birth certificate, but she's already filed for divorce and emergency custody, claiming I'm unstable and a threat to the baby. Julia was typing furiously on her laptop. She's trying to control the narrative. We need to respond, but carefully. Brad, how quickly can you get the official DNA results? I have them. He pulled out the envelope again. But there's something else. I hired a private investigator yesterday to find out who Tyler's real father is. He handed us a folder. Inside were surveillance photos of Rachel from the past week, meeting with various men, including one I recognized as Jake, the personal trainer. But it was the last set of photos that made Julia gasp. Rachel entering a law office. Not just any law office. The building where Lawrence Hoffman used to practice, now occupied by a different firm. But the man greeting her at the door wasn't a lawyer. It was Marcus's bookie, Vincent Caruso, a name I'd learned from the gambling debts paperwork. She's working with the people Marcus owed money to, Julia said slowly. This isn't just about inheritance. This is about collecting on debts. My phone rang. Unknown number. Julia nodded and I answered on speaker. Mrs. Sullivan, this is Vincent Caruso. I believe you know who I am. His voice was smooth, professional, not what I'd expected from a bookie. I know Marcus owed you money. $600,000 to be precise. Now I'm a businessman, Mrs. Sullivan. I don't want trouble. Your sister has proposed a solution that works for everyone. She gets the house, sells it, pays off Marcus's debts. Everyone's happy. Except me. You'd still have half the value minus the debts, of course. Better than losing everything in a messy legal battle. Think about it. Rachel can be persistent when she wants something. Save yourself the heartache. He hung up before I could respond. That was a threat, Brad said. He's threatening you. Julia was already dialing. I'm calling the FBI. Gambling debts, crossing state lines, extortion fraud. This is their jurisdiction now. While she talked to federal agents, Brad's investigator called with an update. He'd tracked down Jake Morrison, the personal trainer. Jake was at his gym, and he was willing to talk. An hour later, Brad and I sat across from Jake at a smoothie bar near his gym. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 26, all muscles and nerves. His leg bounced constantly as he talked. Look, I didn't know she was married at first, he began. Rachel came to train 3 times a week, always flirting. Said she was separated, going through a divorce. By the time I found out the truth, we were involved. When was this? About 2 years ago, right around the time she started talking about wanting a baby. Said her biological clock was ticking, that she wanted what her sister had. He glanced at me apologetically. No offense. None taken. Keep going. She was obsessed with you, honestly, always comparing herself. Said you got all the luck, the perfect husband, the money, the house. She deserved those things too. Then she found out about Marcus's gambling through some connections I had. She saw an opportunity. You introduced Marcus to the games. Jake shifted uncomfortably. She asked me to. Said her brother-in-law needed some excitement in his life. I knew some people who ran a regular game thought it was harmless. I didn't know he'd get in so deep. What about Tyler? Could he be yours? Jake's whole demeanor changed. He straightened up, met my eyes directly. I wondered. The timing was right, but Rachel swore he wasn't said she knew who the father was. Then about a month ago, she came to me, asked if I'd take a paternity test, said she needed to be sure for some legal thing. My heart rate spiked, and I never got the results. She said she'd handle it. But then last week, she showed up at my apartment. Said if anyone asked, I was never with her when Tyler was conceived. Gave me $5,000 in cash to forget we ever dated. I took it. I'm not proud of it, but I've got student loans. Would you be willing to take another test, an official one? Jake was quiet for a long moment. He could be my son. We don't know, but he deserves to know who his father is. Yeah, okay, but I want a real lawyer there, and if he is mine, I want to know. I want to be involved. My dad walked out when I was 3. I won't do that to my kid. We left with Jake's contact information and a promise to arrange testing through official channels. In the car, Brad was quiet until we reached a red light. "Part of me hopes it's him," he said quietly. "At least Jake seems decent. Better than Tyler being Marcus's or some random stranger's." "You really love that little boy." "I'm the only father he's ever known. Rachel can change the locks file all the papers she wants. That doesn't change the fact that I'm the one who's been there every day. First smile, first tooth, first steps. That was me, not whoever contributed DNA." Back at my house, Julia had news. The FBI was interested. Very interested. Vincent Caruso was already on their radar for illegal gambling operations. The connection to fraud and extortion through Rachel made this a much bigger case. "They want to meet with you tomorrow," she said. "Bring everything. The journal, the recordings, all of it. Rachel may have just connected herself to organized crime." That evening, as I sat in my too-quiet house surrounded by legal documents and evidence of betrayal, I realized something. Rachel had been right about one thing. I had been lucky. Lucky to have the life I'd built, even if it was built on lies. Lucky to have friends like Julia who stood by me. Lucky to have the resources to fight back. But luck only takes you so far. The rest was going to take courage, truth, and the kind of strength I wasn't sure I had. Rachel had played her hand publicly, dramatically, thinking she held all the cards. She had no idea that every move she made was just tightening the noose she'd put around her own neck, and the DNA test that would prove Tyler's paternity. That was going to be the thing that finally brought her house of cards crashing down. I just had to survive long enough to see it happen. The FBI field office in New Haven was nothing like television portrayed. No dramatic lighting or sleek glass offices, just a bland government building with uncomfortable chairs and the persistent smell of burnt coffee. Agent Sarah Chen and Agent Michael Torres sat across from Julia and me in a small conference room, digital recorders and notepads between us. "Mrs. Sullivan, what we're looking at here is potentially a multi-state criminal enterprise," Agent Chen began. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with an economy of movement that suggested military background. "Your husband's gambling debts connect to operations we've been monitoring for 3 years." I slid Marcus's journal across the table, followed by the financial documents Julia had helped me compile. Agent Torres, younger and more animated than his partner, whistled low as he flipped through the pages. "This is comprehensive. The forensic accountant you hired did excellent work." He paused at a particular page. "These offshore accounts in the Caymans, your husband set these up." "I had no idea they existed until this week." "But your sister did," Agent Chen said. It wasn't a question. Julia leaned forward. "We believe Rachel Sullivan Mitchell was not only aware of the accounts, but was helping to facilitate money movement through them. Look at the dates of the transfers. They correspond with her trips to see Marcus." The agents exchanged glances. Agent Torres pulled out a tablet, swiping through files. "Vincent Caruso. He's what we call a mid-level operator, runs book for the Torelli family out of Providence. Not usually the type to get involved in inheritance fraud. Unless the stakes are high enough," Agent Chen added. $600,000 is serious money even for them." "But that's not all Marcus owed," I said, remembering the credit card statements. "There were other debts, other people." "We know." Agent Torres turned his tablet toward us. "Your husband was in deep with at least 4 different operations. Total debt approaching $1.2 million. The question is, how does a successful investment banker get in that deep without anyone noticing?" "Rachel," Julia said simply. "She didn't just introduce him to gambling, she facilitated it, encouraged it, probably even helped hide it. Look at these bank records. Regular transfers from Marcus's accounts to Rachel's, always just under the reporting limit." "Structuring," Agent Chen murmured. "That's a federal crime on its own." For the next 3 hours, we went through everything. The fake will, the forged notary, Rachel's connections to the gambling operations through Jake. The agents took notes, made copies, asked probing questions that made me realize how much I'd missed while living my seemingly perfect life. "There's something else," Agent Torres said as we were wrapping up. "Your sister's recent activities. She's been busy since that television interview." He showed us surveillance photos. Rachel at various banks withdrawing cash. Rachel meeting with men I didn't recognize in parking garages and coffee shops. Rachel at a storage facility in Bridgeport. "We think she's liquidating assets, preparing to run." My phone buzzed. Brad texting, "Emergency. Rachel's gone. Took Tyler. Call me." I showed the agents whose expressions turned grim. Agent Chen immediately made a call while Torres typed rapidly on his tablet. "When did he notice she was gone?" Torres asked. I called Brad, putting him on speaker. His voice was frantic. "I went by the house to pick up some things. My neighbor said he saw her loading suitcases into her car around noon. Tyler's car seat is gone, his favorite toys clothes. She's running." "Mr. Mitchell, this is Agent Chen with the FBI. Do you have any idea where your wife might go?" "Ex-wife," Brad corrected bitterly. "And no, her parents may be friends in Boston." But I knew. Suddenly, with absolute clarity, I knew where Rachel would go. The Stamford condo, the one Marcus bought. She said he got it for them to be together. Julia was already pulling up property records on her phone. Found it. Purchased 7 months ago under an LLC called New Beginnings Holdings. Mortgage in Marcus's name, but Rachel Mitchell is listed as an authorized resident. The agents moved fast. Within minutes, they had local law enforcement heading to the condo alerts, out for Rachel's car notifications to airports and train stations. But they needed more for an arrest warrant. "The DNA test," I said suddenly. "Jake was going to take a paternity test. If we can prove Tyler isn't Marcus's, it destroys her entire fraud case." Agent Chen nodded. "Where's Mr. Morrison now?" 20 minutes later, we were at Jake's gym. He was just finishing a training session, his client, a middle-aged woman who looked annoyed at the interruption. When he saw the FBI agents, his face went pale. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said immediately. "We know," Agent Torres assured him. "We need your help. It's about Tyler." Jake's whole demeanor changed. "Is he okay? Did something happen?" "Rachel's disappeared with him. Mr. Morrison, we need you to take a paternity test. Today. It's crucial for proving fraud and helping us locate the child." "Yes, whatever you need." The next stop was a federal lab facility where they could fast-track DNA testing. Jake provided samples, as did Brad, who met us there. The technician said they could have preliminary results within hours given the urgency. While we waited, Julia's phone rang. It was the forensic accountant with more findings. "You need to hear this," she told the agents, putting it on speaker. "I found hidden accounts in Tyler's name," the accountant said. "Opened the day after he was born, funded with regular deposits from shell companies. The same shell companies receiving money from Marcus's offshore accounts. Total value approximately $300,000. She was using her baby to launder money," Agent Chen said. "That's creative and deeply illegal." My phone rang. Unknown number. The agents gestured for me to answer while they set up recording equipment. "Hello." "Blair." Rachel's voice, but different, desperate. "I know you're with them. The FBI. I saw them at Jake's gym." "Rachel, where are you? Where's Tyler?" "He's safe. He's my son. I'd never hurt him. But I need you to understand something. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Marcus was supposed to leave you. We were supposed to be together. With the money he owed to criminals." She laughed brittle and sharp. "You still don't get it. Marcus didn't owe them anything. That was the plan. He'd rack up fake debts, transfer money to pay them off, but it would really go to our accounts. Vincent was in on it. Everyone was winning." Agent Chen's eyes widened. This was bigger than we'd thought. "But Marcus got greedy," Rachel continued. "Started gambling for real. Lost money we didn't have. Vincent got angry. Everything spiraled. So you decided to take my house. I deserve something. Do you know what it's like being the pretty one, the fun one, but never the successful one? Never the one with the perfect husband and the perfect life. I just wanted what you had. Rachel, turn yourself in. Think about Tyler. Tyler's all I have left. Her voice cracked. Brad's not his father. I know that now. The test I had Jake take, he's not the father either. Then who? A long pause. I don't know. There were others, one-night things. Tyler might be anyone's, or no one's, just mine. That's not how biology works, Rachel. I have to go. Tell Brad, tell him I'm sorry. He was a good father, better than whoever the real one is. The line went dead. Agent Torres was already on his phone trying to trace the call. Agent Chen turned to me. She just confessed to the money laundering scheme. With Marcus dead, she's trying to salvage what she can. 2 hours later, the DNA results came in. Jake Morrison was not Tyler's father. Neither was Brad, which meant Rachel had been with at least one other man during the conception window. But the real bombshell came from the medical examiner's report that Agent Chen pulled up. We had Marcus's DNA from the autopsy, ran it against Tyler's as a matter of course. She looked up from her tablet. It's not just that Marcus isn't the father. The blood types are incompatible. Even without the vasectomy, he couldn't have fathered this child. Meaning Rachel knew all along she was lying, Julia said. More than that, Agent Torres added. She deliberately committed fraud, forgery, and involved a minor in money laundering. Combined with the confession she just made, we have enough for federal warrants. As we left the FBI office, Brad looked broken. A year. I raised him for a year, thinking he was mine. Then I thought at least he was Marcus's, that he was Blair's nephew. But he's just some stranger's baby. No, I said firmly. He's Tyler, the little boy who calls you daddy, who you love. DNA doesn't change that. Try telling that to a family court judge, he said bitterly. That evening, local police found Rachel's car at the Stamford condo, but she and Tyler were gone. Security footage showed her leaving with the baby and 2 suitcases getting into a car with a man none of us recognized. The manhunt was on, but Rachel had planned this carefully. The money in Tyler's accounts had been withdrawn. Her passport was gone. And somewhere out there, my sister was running with a baby whose father was unknown, chased by the FBI and the mob alike. The financial investigation had revealed the truth, a web of lies, fraud, and greed that went deeper than any of us imagined. But it had also revealed something else. In trying to steal my life, Rachel had destroyed her own. And Tyler, innocent in all of this, was now at the center of a federal investigation that would change his life forever. The great irony. If Rachel had just asked for help, I would have given it. But she wanted what she thought I had the perfect life. She never understood that perfection was just another lie we tell ourselves. And now we all had to live with the consequences. The call came at 2 a.m, 3 days after Rachel had disappeared. Not from the FBI or the police, but from Rachel herself. My phone lit up with her name, and I answered before I was fully awake. Blair. Her voice was small, exhausted. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I sat up instantly alert. Rachel, where are you? It doesn't matter. I need to see you, just you. No FBI, no lawyers, no Brad, just my sister. Rachel, please. The word broke on a sob. I know I don't deserve it, but Tyler, he needs things I can't give him while running. He's sick, just a cold, but I can't take him to a doctor without them finding us. My heart clenched despite everything. Tell me where you are. The place we used to go as kids, when Dad would take us fishing. You remember? I did. Lake Lilinona, about an hour north. We'd rent the same cabin every summer until I was 12 and Rachel was 5. I'll be there at sunrise, she said. Cabin 7, come alone or I'll run again. Rachel, the FBI, I know they're listening. I'm not stupid, but I need to explain things to you first. You deserve that much. The line went dead. I sat in the dark for a moment, then called Julia. Don't go, she said immediately after I explained. It could be a trap. Let the FBI handle it. But I was already getting dressed. She's my sister, and there's a sick baby involved. Then I'm coming with you. No, she said alone, I need to do this. Blair, she's desperate and potentially dangerous. She's connected to organized crime. She's also scared and has a sick child. I'm going. I left before anyone could stop me driving through the pre-dawn darkness toward a place I hadn't thought about in years. The roads were empty, giving me too much time to think about the summers at that lake, teaching Rachel to swim, building sandcastles, roasting marshmallows. When had that little girl who followed me everywhere become someone capable of such deception? The cabin rental area was deserted this late in the season. I parked near cabin 7, noting Rachel's car wasn't visible. Smart. She'd hidden it somewhere. I knocked softly. Rachel, it's me. The door opened and I barely recognized my sister. She'd lost weight in just 3 days, her designer clothes replaced with worn jeans and a sweatshirt. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked younger, vulnerable, like the little girl I remembered. Thank you for coming, she whispered, stepping aside. Tyler was asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets. His cheeks were flushed with fever, nose running. He stirred when I entered, whimpering softly. How long has he been sick? 2 days. I've been giving him infant Tylenol, but I ran out. Rachel's hands shook as she tucked the blanket around him. I can't take him to urgent care. They'd have questions about insurance identification. I touched Tyler's forehead, warm but not dangerously so. He needs a doctor. I know. She sank into a chair, looking defeated. I know everything he needs. A stable home. His father. A mother who isn't a criminal. I've ruined everything. Tell me what happened. All of it. The truth this time. Rachel laughed bitterly. Which truth? There are so many versions now I can't keep track. Start with Marcus. She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, staring at Tyler's sleeping form, she began to talk. I've always been jealous of you, always. You were older, smarter, more successful. Everything came so easily to you. The good grades, the scholarships, the perfect husband. Do you know what it's like living in someone's shadow your whole life? I wanted to argue that my life hadn't been easy, but I let her continue. When Brad proposed, I thought finally I'd have what you had. A good man, a nice house, a future. But it wasn't enough. Brad was boring, safe. He didn't look at me the way Marcus looked at you. So you seduced my husband? No. She met my eyes for the first time. He seduced me. That 4th of July party. I was upset because we'd been trying for a baby and nothing was happening. I was crying in the pool house and Marcus found me. He said he understood that you two had been through the same thing. He was so kind, so understanding. And then he kissed me, said he'd always been attracted to me, that I was the fun sister, the exciting one, that you'd become so focused on having a baby you'd forgotten how to be a wife. The words stung, even knowing they were likely lies. I should have stopped it, but I was drunk on attention, on being chosen over you for once. We started meeting regularly. He made me feel special, desired. Then I found out about the gambling. He begged me not to tell you, said he was handling it. I introduced him to Jake's connections, thinking it would help him win back what he'd lost. But it made things worse. So much worse. The debts grew. Vincent Caruso got involved. Marcus was desperate. That's when I realized I was pregnant. By who? Rachel's face crumbled. I don't know. I was seeing Marcus Jake and there was someone else, a bartender from the casino. One night when Marcus was gambling and losing badly, I was angry, drunk. It just happened. So you decided to trap Marcus with a baby that might not be his. I thought it was his, the timing, I convinced myself. And Marcus believed it. He was going to leave you, start fresh with me and Tyler. But then the debts got worse. Vincent started making threats. Marcus realized he couldn't leave you without losing everything, the house, his reputation, access to money to pay what he owed. So the will, Vincent's idea, Forge a will, claim half the house, sell it to pay the debts. Everyone wins. Except Marcus got cold feet, said he was going to tell you everything, throw himself on your mercy. He was at the casino trying to win enough to pay Vincent off without involving the house, but he was tired, so tired from days of playing. When he left, she stopped, fresh tears streaming. You were there. The police know you were there. I tried to stop him from driving. He'd been awake for 48 hours straight, hyped up on coffee and desperation. But he wouldn't listen. Said he had to get home to you to confess everything before it was too late. Did you tamper with his car? No. The vehemence in her voice was real. I may be many things, but I'm not a murderer. I followed him for a few miles to make sure he was okay, then went home. The accident, that was just exhaustion. Just a terrible accident that ruined everything. Tyler stirred, coughing. Rachel immediately went to him, feeling his forehead, adjusting his blankets. The tenderness in her actions was genuine. Whatever else she was, she loved this baby. After Marcus died, I panicked. Vincent still wanted his money. The will was already forged. I thought if I could just get the house, pay him off, disappear maybe. Start fresh somewhere with Tyler. But the DNA tests ruined that plan. Brad ruined it. If he'd just believed me, supported me, we could have worked something out. But he had to investigate, had to know the truth. He loved you. He deserved the truth. The truth. Rachel laughed bitterly. The truth is, I'm a terrible person who destroyed everything I touched. My marriage, your marriage, Tyler's future. Even Marcus, who for all his faults didn't deserve to die. What about Tyler's real father? Doesn't he deserve to know? The bartender's name was Ryan Chen, but when I went back to find him, he was gone. Deported, someone said. Back to Canada. Jake's not the father, the tests proved that. Which means Tyler is either Marcus's, which the blood types say is impossible, or Ryan's. Or someone else's entirely. Rachel flinched. There was no one else. I may be a liar and a cheat, but I remember who I slept with. Tyler started crying in earnest, now that pitiful, sick baby wail that tugs at anyone's heart. Rachel picked him up, bouncing him gently, but he wouldn't settle. He needs medicine, I said, and you need to turn yourself in. I know. The fight seemed to drain out of her. I know, but what happens to Tyler Foster? Care Brad won't want him, now that he knows he's not his. My parents will be too ashamed. He'll grow up knowing his mother was a criminal, his father unknown. That's not your only option. She looked at me sharply. You'd take him after everything. He's innocent in all this, and he's still my nephew, even if not by blood. You always were too good for your own good. But there was hope in her voice now. There are conditions. You turn yourself in. You cooperate fully with the FBI. You tell them everything about Vincent, the money laundering, all of it. And you get help. Real psychological help. They'll put me in prison. Probably. But Tyler will be safe and cared for. And maybe someday when you've served your time and gotten help, you can be part of his life again. Tyler had quieted, looking at me with those green eyes that weren't Marcus's, but still somehow familiar. Maybe it was just baby resemblance, but I saw Rachel in him. The Rachel I remembered from childhood before jealousy and bitterness poisoned everything. Okay, Rachel whispered. Okay, but can we just have today, one last day before I lose him forever? We could take him to the doctor, get him medicine. Let me say goodbye properly. I should have said no, should have called the FBI immediately. But looking at my broken sister holding her sick baby, I made a decision. One day, but we do this right. Doctor first, then you say goodbye. Rachel nodded, tears streaming. Thank you for everything, for coming, for Tyler, for being the sister I never deserved. We spent that day creating one last memory for a little boy who wouldn't remember it. Got him medicine, took him to a park when his fever broke, fed him ice cream he was too young for. Rachel took 1,000 pictures, told him 1,000 times she loved him. That evening she turned herself in. The FBI took her into custody while I held Tyler, who cried for his mama, not understanding why she was leaving. Brad arrived soon after, and despite everything, when Tyler reached for him, calling, "Dada," Brad took him without hesitation. The confrontation I'd driven up dreading had become something else entirely. Not a battle between sisters, but a reckoning. Rachel would face justice for her crimes. Tyler would grow up loved if confused about his origins, and I would somehow have to rebuild a life from the ashes of all these lies. But first, I had a promise to keep to a little boy who deserved better than the hand he'd been dealt. Whatever DNA might say, Tyler was family now. And family, I was learning, had very little to do with blood and everything to do with choice. 2 weeks after Rachel's arrest, I called a family meeting. Not at my house, tainted with memories of Marcus, or at our parents' home where we'd grown up as sisters. I rented a private room at a neutral restaurant, somewhere we could speak freely without the weight of history pressing down on us. Mom arrived first, aged 10 years and 2 weeks. Dad followed, his arm protective around her shoulders. Brad came with Tyler, who was fully recovered from his cold and babbling happily in his carrier. Aunt Susan and Uncle Richard, Patricia, various cousins, they all filed in with expressions ranging from curiosity to dread. Julia sat beside me for support, though this wasn't a legal meeting. This was about family truth and deciding what came next. Thank you all for coming. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I know the last few weeks have been devastating for everyone, but there are things you need to know. Things Rachel told me before she turned herself in. I had prepared what to say, even made notes, but looking at their faces, my family's faces, I pushed the papers aside. First, I want to play you something. I pulled out my phone, connected it to a portable speaker. This is Rachel's full confession to the FBI. She wanted you all to hear it directly from her. Rachel's voice filled the room, exhausted but clear. She told them everything. The affair with Marcus, the gambling, the other men, the fraud. But more than that, she talked about why. The jealousy that had eaten her alive. The desperate need to be special, to be chosen to have what I had. I blamed Blair for everything, Rachel's recorded voice said. For being born first, for being smarter, for having what I wanted. But the truth is, I destroyed my own life. I had a good husband who loved me, a beautiful son, parents who supported me, and I threw it all away because I couldn't stop comparing myself to my sister. Mom was crying silently. Dad stared at the table. Brad held Tyler tighter as if someone might try to take him. The recording continued. I manipulated Marcus when he was vulnerable. I encouraged his gambling addiction. I slept with multiple men trying to feel powerful, desired. When I got pregnant, I didn't know who the father was, but I told Marcus it was his, because I wanted to trap him. I wanted to take everything from Blair because I thought it would make me happy. That's enough, Mom said quietly. Turn it off. I did. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Uncle Richard spoke. So Tyler isn't Marcus's son. DNA confirms Marcus couldn't be the father. He'd had a vasectomy years ago. I watched the shock ripple through the room. Tyler's father is likely a man named Ryan Chen, who's no longer in the country. But that's not why we're here. Then why? Mom asked. Because we need to decide what happens next. As a family, Rachel will likely serve 3 to 5 years for fraud and money laundering. Tyler needs a home. Brad wants to remain his father, but legally it's complicated since he's not the biological parent, and Rachel filed for divorce. I'll fight for him, Brad said firmly. I don't care about DNA. He's my son. And I support that, I continued. I've already spoken to lawyers about supporting Brad's custody claim, but this affects all of us. Tyler will grow up knowing his mother is in prison. His biological father is unknown. He'll need all of us. Aunt Susan cleared her throat. What about you, Blair? This child is a living reminder of your husband's betrayal. Can you really? Tyler is innocent, I said firmly. He didn't ask for any of this, and frankly, he's helped me realize something. Marcus and I spent years trying to have a baby, putting our bodies and marriage through hell. But maybe Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe Tyler is the child I'm supposed to help raise, just not in the way I imagined. That's very noble, Patricia said, Marcus's sister, who'd remained silent until now. But what about the practical matters, the house, the debts? My brother left quite a mess. Julia stepped in. The criminal assets will be frozen, but Blair's protected. The house is half hers, free and clear. Marcus's debts will be settled through his estate and life insurance, which did pay out since his death was ruled accidental. There's enough to cover everything with some left over for Tyler's future. Blood money, someone muttered. No, I said sharply. Tyler's rightful inheritance from the man he'll grow up believing was his father, because that's what we're going to tell him, that Marcus died before he was born. The rest, the truth, that's for when he's older and can understand. You want us to lie? Mom asked. I want us to protect an innocent child. He'll know Rachel is his mother. He'll know Brad raised him and loves him. The biological details can wait until he's old enough to process them without shame. And Rachel. Dad spoke for the first time. She's still our daughter. Yes, and she's getting help. Real psychological help as part of her plea deal. She'll have supervised visitation with Tyler once she's served some time. This isn't about punishing her forever. It's about breaking the cycle. What cycle? Mom asked defensively. I took a breath. This was the hard part. The cycle of comparison and competition you fostered between us. Maybe unconsciously, but it was there. Rachel was the pretty one. I was the smart one. She was fun. I was responsible. We were never just ourselves, always defined in relation to each other. That's not fair, Mom protested. Isn't it? I pulled out a photo album I'd brought. Look, every picture from childhood. Blair won the science fair while Rachel won the beauty pageant. Blair got into Yale while Rachel got into parties. You painted us into boxes we couldn't escape. All parents compare their children, Uncle Richard said uncomfortably. And look where it led. Rachel felt she could never measure up. I felt guilty for every success. We stopped being sisters and became competitors, and now we're here. Brad spoke up. She's right. Rachel talked about it constantly, how Blair got everything first. Better grades, better job, better husband. She couldn't see what she had because she was too busy looking at what Blair had. So what do you want from us? Aunt Susan asked. I want us to do better with Tyler. No comparisons to other kids. No defining him by who his parents were or weren't. Just love him for who he is. And I want honesty, I continued. Several of you knew about the affair and said nothing. You chose sides, kept secrets, enabled this disaster. That stops now. We didn't want to hurt you, Patricia said quietly. Silence hurt worse. If someone had told me 6 months ago, maybe Marcus would still be alive. Maybe Rachel wouldn't be in federal prison. Maybe Tyler would know who his father really is. The room fell silent again. Tyler, oblivious to the weight of the conversation, reached for a spoon on the table. Brad automatically moved it out of reach, the gesture so paternal it made my heart ache. I've been seeing a therapist, I admitted, trying to process everything. She asked me what I wanted from all this. You know what I said? I want my sister back. Not the Rachel who betrayed me, but the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who made me friendship bracelets at summer camp, who was my maid of honor and cried happy tears at my wedding. That Rachel is gone, Mom said sadly. No, she's in federal prison getting the help she always needed. And maybe when she gets out, we can build something new. Not the relationship we had, but something honest. You can forgive her, Dad asked. After everything, I don't know, but I want to try, for Tyler, for all of us. Because holding on to anger and resentment, that's what got us here in the first place. Brad's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting. It's Rachel's lawyer. She wants to video call with Tyler, her first allowed contact. Do you want us to leave? Aunt Susan asked. No, Brad decided. We're doing this differently now. No more secrets. He accepted the call, propping the phone where Tyler could see. Rachel appeared on screen wearing orange, her face bare of makeup. When she saw Tyler, her composure cracked. "Hi, baby boy," she whispered. "Mama loves you so much." Tyler babbled happily, reaching for the screen. "Mama!" "I know I can't be there." Rachel continued, tears streaming. "But Daddy's taking care of you, and Aunt Blair, and all the family who loves you." She looked past Tyler to the rest of us. "I see everyone's there. Good. I need you all to hear this. I'm sorry, not just for what I did, but for who I became, for letting jealousy and bitterness poison everything good in my life. I'm getting help, real help. And someday I hope you can forgive me, not for my sake, but for Tyler's. He deserves a family that's whole even if I'm not there." "We're working on it," I told her, "all of us." "Blair, I know I have no right to ask, but thank you. For Tyler, for Brad, for not letting my mistakes destroy his future." "He's family," I said simply. "We take care of family." The call ended soon after Tyler getting fussy when he couldn't touch his mama through the screen. But something had shifted in the room. The anger was still there, the hurt, the betrayal. But underneath was something else. Hope, maybe, that from all this destruction we could build something better. "So what now?" Mom asked. "Now we be the family Tyler deserves," I said. "We show up. We tell the truth. We stop comparing and competing. We choose love over resentment." "It won't be easy," Uncle Richard warned. "No, but the alternative is worse. We've seen where secrets and lies lead." One by one, they nodded. Agreement to try, to do better, to break the cycles that had led us here. As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Brad stopped me. "Thank you for fighting for us, for Tyler." Rachel was wrong about a lot of things, but she was right about one thing. You really are too good for your own good. "No," I corrected. "I'm just someone who's learned that family isn't about blood or perfection. It's about showing up, especially when it's hard." Tyler reached for me from Brad's arms, and I took him, this little boy who'd become the unexpected center of our fractured family. He smiled, patting my face with sticky hands, and I realized something. Rachel had wanted my life so badly she'd destroyed her own trying to take it. But in the end, she'd given me something I'd wanted just as desperately. A child to love. Not how I'd planned, not how anyone would choose. But love rarely follows the paths we expect. "Come on, Tyler," I said, kissing his forehead. "Let's go home." And for the first time since finding those credit card statements in Marcus's office, I actually meant it. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was this makeshift family bound by tragedy but choosing hope. It was messy and complicated and nothing like the perfect life I'd thought I had. But it was real, and that was enough. The story should have ended with Rachel in federal prison and our family beginning to heal. But 3 weeks after our family meeting, everything exploded again in ways none of us saw coming. It started with a knock on my door on a Thursday evening. Brad and Tyler were over for dinner, something we'd been doing twice a week to maintain routine. Tyler was in his high chair cheerfully throwing peas, while Brad tried to convince him food belonged in mouths, not on floors. The man at the door was young, maybe late 20s, with the kind of nervous energy that immediately put me on edge. Asian features, tall, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite fit like it should. "Mrs. Sullivan, my name is James Chen. I think you have my nephew." The words hung in the air. Behind me, I heard Brad's sharp intake of breath. "I'm sorry, what?" "Tyler, the baby. I believe he's my brother Ryan's son. I've been looking for him." I let him in, my mind racing. In the kitchen, Brad had gone very still, Tyler oblivious in his arms. James Chen sat at my dining table looking uncomfortable but determined. My brother Ryan worked as a bartender at the Borgata until about 18 months ago. He had issues with his visa, had to return to Toronto quickly. He left behind some complications. "Rachel," Brad said flatly. He told me about her before he left, said he'd met someone, that it was complicated because she was married. Then he found out she was pregnant. He wanted to do the right thing, but he was already in deportation proceedings. "Why now?" I asked. "Why show up now?" James pulled out his phone, showing us a news article about Rachel's arrest. "We've been following the case. When the DNA tests showed Tyler wasn't the husbands or the trainers, we knew. Ryan's the father." "You can't know that without a test," Brad said, holding Tyler tighter. "You're right. That's why I'm here. I want a paternity test. And if Tyler is Ryan's—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Our family wants to be involved. We want custody." The word landed like a bomb. Brad stood abruptly, Tyler sensing the tension and starting to fuss. "Over my dead body, I'm his father. I've been here since day one." "Legally, you're nothing to him," James said, not unkindly but firmly. "If he's Ryan's son, we have rights. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, a whole family in Toronto who want to know him." "He has a family," I interjected. "Here, Brad's been raising him. I'm his guardian while Rachel's incarcerated. You can't just show up and stake a claim like he's property." "I'm not trying to be cruel," James said, "but put yourself in our position. This child might be the only piece of my brother we have left. Ryan died 6 months ago. Car accident. He never got to come back, never knew for sure if the baby was his. Don't we deserve to know?" The revelation that Ryan was dead shifted something in the room. Tyler's biological father, if that's who he was, would never complicate things by showing up. But his family might be worse. "What do you propose?" I asked, earning a sharp look from Brad. "DNA test first. If Tyler's not Ryan's, I disappear. If he is, we negotiate. Visitation maybe. Summers in Toronto. Something that acknowledges his heritage." "His heritage is here," Brad insisted. "His mother is American. His family is American. You're strangers." "Biology matters in court," James said simply. After he left with my promise to consider the test, Brad was frantic. "We can't let them take him. Blair promised me we won't let them take him. We need to call Julia, and we need to tell Rachel." The video call with Rachel that night was devastating. When we told her about James Chen, she broke down completely. "Ryan's dead. Oh, God, I didn't—" "We only had that one night. I was angry at Marcus for losing again. Ryan was sweet, paid attention to me, but it was just once. How can Tyler be his from just once?" "Biology doesn't care about frequency," Brad said bitterly. "You have to fight them," Rachel pleaded. "Brad, please. You're his daddy, the only one he's ever known. Don't let them take my baby to Canada." "I'm trying, Rach, but I need you to think. Is there any chance Tyler isn't Ryan's, anyone else?" Rachel was quiet for so long I thought the connection had dropped. Then very quietly, "No, the timing. If he's not yours, not Marcus's, not Jake's, then he's Ryan's. That was the only time I was careless about protection." Over the next days, the situation spiraled. James wasn't alone. He'd brought a family lawyer. The Chen family was established in Toronto, owned several restaurants, had resources. They filed official paperwork requesting paternity testing and asserting potential custody claims. Julia worked frantically to counter them. Brad's case is strong for maintaining custody, but if they prove biological paternity, they'll have standing, especially with Rachel in prison. "What about me?" I asked. "I'm Tyler's guardian." "You're an aunt by marriage to a man who wasn't actually the father. It's tenuous legally." Social media made everything worse. Someone leaked the story and suddenly baby Tyler's custody battle was trending. The Chen family was painted as either heartless foreigners trying to steal an American baby or grieving relatives just wanting connection to their dead son. Brad was either a devoted father or a man with no legal right to another man's child. Through it all, Tyler remained oblivious. He'd started walking, toddling between furniture with drooly grins. His first clear word after mama and dada was ball, which he applied to anything round. He had no idea his whole world was being fought over in court documents and social media posts. The DNA test was ordered by the court. Brad brought Tyler in looking like he was walking to an execution. I went with them for support. Tyler charmed the technician playing peekaboo during the cheek swab. "Results in 3 days," she said cheerfully, not knowing she was counting down to potential devastation. Those 3 days were torture. Brad basically moved in with me, unable to be alone. We took turns with Tyler playing reading, trying to memorize every moment. Julia prepared different legal strategies based on the possible outcomes. The Chen family lawyer sent daily emails about their clients' rights. Then Patricia Marcus's sister dropped her own bombshell. She came to the house looking conflicted and carrying a box. "I've been going through Marcus's things from his office," she said. "His assistant found this hidden in a locked drawer. I think you need to see it." Inside the box were more documents. Financial records showing Marcus had been sending money to someone in Toronto for the past year. Regular monthly transfers of $2,000 to an account in Ryan Chen's name. He knew. I breathed. Marcus knew Tyler might be Ryan's. There was a letter, too, dated a week before his death. "Ryan, I know you can't come back, but Tyler might be yours. I'm arranging testing to be sure. If he is, I want to make sure you're compensated for staying away. The monthly payments will continue, but he can't know. No one can know. It would destroy everything. Once Rachel's baby fever passes and she moves on, maybe we can revisit. But for now, silence is what's best for everyone." "He was paying Ryan to stay away from his own child," Brad said, disgusted. "Or he was protecting Tyler from a complicated custody situation," Patricia suggested. "Marcus wasn't a bad man, just a flawed one who got in too deep." Flawed. I laughed bitterly. He was paying hush money to keep a man from his potential child while sleeping with the mother and gambling away our future. But the payments raised new questions. If Marcus was paying, Ryan, did the Chen family know? Were they complicit in keeping Ryan away, or had Ryan kept the money secret, planning to return when he could? We'd never know. Ryan was dead. Marcus was dead, and the only one left who might have answers was sitting in federal prison. The DNA results arrived on a Friday morning. Julia, Brad, and I sat in my living room as she opened the email. Tyler was napping upstairs, blissfully unaware his future was being decided. Julia read silently, her expression giving nothing away. Then she looked up. "Probability of paternity between Ryan Chen and Tyler Mitchell, 99.9%. Brad made a sound like he'd been punched. I reached for his hand, holding tight. "He's mine," Brad whispered. "In every way that matters, he's mine." "I know," Julia said gently, "and we're going to fight to keep it that way. But now we know what we're fighting." That afternoon, James Chen called. "You got the results. We'd like to meet our nephew. This doesn't have to be adversarial. We just want to know him." "And then take him," Brad said. "That's not decided. We're open to discussion. Shared custody, perhaps. We understand you've been his father figure. We don't want to traumatize him. But he has a family in Toronto who loves him already just from knowing he exists." It was reasonable, compassionate even, which somehow made it worse. If they'd been monsters, it would be easier to fight. But they were just a grieving family who'd lost a son and discovered a grandson. The unraveling was complete. Every lie had been exposed, every secret dragged into the light. Tyler, the innocent catalyst of so much destruction, was now at the center of a custody battle that would determine where he grew up, who he called family, what language he spoke first. Rachel called that night, and for the first time since her arrest, I saw real despair in her eyes. "I've lost him, haven't I? Even when I get out, they'll have claims, rights. I'll have to share my son with strangers because I was careless one night." "We don't know that yet," I said, though we all knew the Chen family wouldn't just disappear. "I destroyed everything," Rachel said quietly. "Every single thing I touched turned to ash, and now Tyler pays the price." There was nothing to say to that, because she was right. The unraveling that started with a fake will and a birthday party announcement had spread until it touched everyone. Tyler would grow up with divided loyalties, multiple homes, questions about identity we couldn't answer. But as I heard him wake from his nap calling Dada up in his sweet voice, I knew one thing. However the custody battle played out, whatever compromises were made, Tyler would be loved by Brad, who raised him by me, who chose him, by the Chen family who claimed him, even by Rachel, who'd lost herself trying to give him a different life. It wasn't the family any of us had planned, but maybe that was the lesson in all this destruction. Perfect families like perfect lives were just illusions we told ourselves. Real families were messy, complicated, bound by choice as much as blood. And Tyler. He'd have to be stronger than all of us to navigate the complexity we'd created. But surrounded by so many people fighting to love him, maybe he had a chance. The battle was just beginning. The custody hearing was set for a cold February morning 5 months after Rachel's arrest. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more conference room than grand legal theater. But the weight of what would be decided there made the air feel thick and charged. Brad sat at one table with Julia and his legal team. The Chen family occupied the other side, James, his parents, William and Grace, his sister Emma, their lawyer. I sat in the gallery with our parents who'd driven down despite the awkwardness. Tyler was with a court-appointed child advocate in another room playing with blocks, unaware his future was being decided. Judge Patricia Hawthorne, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and graying hair, reviewed the stack of documents before her. This is a complex case with no clear precedent. We have a biological family seeking custody, a non-biological father who's been the primary caregiver, a mother in federal prison, and a deceased biological father. Let's begin. The Chen family's lawyer, David Park, went first. He painted a picture of a loving, stable family, desperate to connect with their deceased son's child. Photos were shown Ryan as a baby, Ryan graduating high school, Ryan with his family at Christmas, the life Tyler could have in Toronto in a 2-parent household with cousins, grandparents, cultural connections to his heritage. The Chens aren't seeking to erase Brad Mitchell's role, Park said smoothly. They're simply asserting their biological grandchild's right to know his father's family. To deny them any access would be cruel to both the child and the grieving family. Grace Chen testified, first tears flowing as she spoke about losing her son. When Ryan died, we thought we'd lost any chance of grandchildren from him. Then we found out about Tyler. He's all we have left of our boy. We just want to love him, to tell him about his father, to give him the family Ryan would have wanted him to have. It was moving. Even I felt the pull of their grief. But Julia was ready. Mrs. Chen, you say you want what's best for Tyler, but what about stability? He's 20 months old. Brad Mitchell is the only father he's ever known. Wouldn't removing him from that be traumatic? We're not suggesting removal, Grace said carefully. Perhaps shared custody. Summers with us, holidays. Splitting a toddler between 2 countries, 2 homes, 2 sets of rules and expectations. You think that's stability? The questioning continued for hours. William Chen testified about their financial resources. Their community ties the extended family waiting to embrace Tyler. Emma Chen, a pediatrician, spoke about child development and the importance of cultural identity. Then came the revelation that shifted everything. Julia introduced Marcus's hidden payments to Ryan. Your son was receiving $2,000 monthly from Marcus Sullivan. Were you aware of this? The Chens exchanged glances. William cleared his throat. We knew Ryan had some extra income. He said it was from private bartending gigs. But these payments came with a letter asking Ryan to stay away from Tyler. Did you know your son was being paid not to claim his child? No, Grace said firmly. Ryan never told us. If we'd known... What, you'd have encouraged him to return to the U.S. where he faced deportation charges? Or would you have taken the money and stayed quiet just like he did? Objection, Park called out. But the damage was done. The grieving family narrative was complicated by the possibility that Ryan had chosen money over his son. Brad's testimony was devastating in its simplicity. He chronicled every milestone: first smile, first tooth, first word, the sleepless nights with colic, the fear when Tyler had a febrile seizure at 10 months, the joy of hearing "Dada" for the first time. "I know I'm not his biological father," Brad said, voice steady despite the tears. "But I'm the one who's been there, every single day. When he's scared, he reaches for me. When he's hurt, he wants me. That's not biology. That's love. That's family." Park cross-examined aggressively. "Mr. Mitchell, you're going through a divorce. You work full-time. How do you propose to single-parent a toddler?" "The same way I've been doing it since Rachel was arrested. With help from Blair, from family, from friends. It takes a village, and Tyler has one here. But not his biological father's village. His biological father made a choice. He took money to stay away. I'm making a different choice. I'm staying. Forever." My testimony came next. I spoke about becoming Tyler's guardian, about watching Brad parent with dedication that transcended DNA, about Rachel's wishes despite her crimes that Tyler stay with Brad. Then Park asked the question I dreaded. "Mrs. Sullivan, your husband had an affair with your sister that produced this child. Doesn't some part of you resent Tyler, want him gone?" I looked at Tyler's photo on the evidence table. I thought I would. When I first learned the truth, I thought seeing him would be unbearable. But you know what? He's just a little boy who loves dinosaurs and hates green beans and gives the best hugs. He didn't ask for any of this. None of us get to choose how we come into the world. We only get to choose how we love the people in it. The court recessed for lunch. In the hallway, James Chen approached. "This isn't personal," he said quietly. "We're not monsters. He's all we have left of Ryan." "I understand," I said, and meant it. "But Tyler isn't Ryan. He's his own person, and that person knows Brad is his father. Blood matters. Love matters more." When court resumed, Julia played her ace. She'd found Tyler's biological grandmother on Ryan's side, not Grace Chen, but Ryan's birth mother. Ryan had been adopted as an infant by the Chens. His biological mother, Sarah Winters, lived in Michigan and had been following the case. She testified via video link. "The Chens are good people who loved my son. But if we're talking about biological connections, I'm Tyler's biological grandmother, and I believe he should stay with the family he knows. Biology didn't make the Chens Ryan's parents. Love did. Same principle applies here." It was a masterful move. The biological argument suddenly had multiple sides, multiple claims. The Chen's lawyer scrambled to respond, but the damage was done. Rachel testified from federal prison via secured video. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, she looked young and broken. "I've made terrible mistakes," she said quietly. "I hurt everyone who loved me, but the one thing I did right was choosing Brad to be Tyler's father. Not Marcus, who I was obsessed with. Not Ryan, who was a mistake. Brad. He's the one who stepped up, who loved Tyler without conditions. Please don't punish my son for my sins by taking away the only father he's ever known." "You had affairs with multiple men," Park pressed. "You lied about paternity. You committed fraud. Why should the court trust your judgment?" "Because I'm a mother who knows she failed. And I know the only parent who hasn't failed Tyler is Brad. I'm begging you, let my son stay with his real father, the one who chose him." The final arguments took another hour. Park emphasized biological rights, cultural heritage, the resources the Chen family could provide. Julia countered with attachment theory, stability, the best interests of a child who knew only one father. Judge Hawthorne retired to chambers. We waited 3 agonizing hours before she returned. "This case presents unique challenges," she began. "The biological father is deceased and was paid to stay away. The biological grandparents only recently learned of the child's existence. The legal mother is incarcerated. The psychological father has no biological connection." She paused, scanning the room. "However, the paramount consideration must be Tyler's best interests, not the adult's desires, rights, or grief, the child's needs." My heart hammered as she continued. The evidence shows Tyler Mitchell has formed a secure attachment to Brad Mitchell. Disrupting that would cause significant psychological harm. While the Chen family's desire to know their grandchild is understandable, it cannot supersede Tyler's need for stability. Brad gripped Julia's hand so tight his knuckles went white. Therefore, I am awarding sole physical custody to Brad Mitchell. The Chen family will be granted supervised visitation 4 times per year to take place in Connecticut. As Tyler grows older, this may be revisited, but for now, he remains with the only father he has known. The Chen side erupted in protests. Grace Chen sobbed, but Judge Hawthorne wasn't finished. I am also formally recognizing Blair Sullivan as Tyler's legal guardian in partnership with Mr. Mitchell, given her role in his daily care and her status as his deceased uncle's widow. This will provide additional stability. Furthermore, given the unusual circumstances, I am expediting Mr. Mitchell's formal adoption proceedings. Biology alone does not make a parent. Love, commitment, and daily care do. Mr. Mitchell has proven all 3. The gavel came down. Brad collapsed in his chair, sobbing. I rushed to him, Julia joining our embrace. Across the aisle, the Chen family huddled together, grieving a different loss. In the hallway afterward, William Chen approached us. "We'll appeal." "That's your right," Julia said. "But think about what's best for Tyler. He's staying here. You can be part of his life, or you can spend years in court fighting for something that will only hurt him." James stepped forward. "Dad, stop. The judge is right. Tyler needs stability." He looked at Brad. "We'd like to accept the visitation offer, to know our nephew, not own him." Grace was still crying, but she nodded. "We have photos of Ryan, videos, things Tyler might want when he's older. We could share them." "I'd like that," Brad said quietly. "Tyler should know where he comes from, all of it." It wasn't a perfect solution. Perfect had died with Marcus and Ryan. But it was real, and it prioritized the only truly innocent person in this mess. That evening, we brought Tyler home. He toddled to Brad, immediately arms raised. "Dada up." Brad scooped him up, holding him close. "Yeah, buddy. Dada's here. Dada's always going to be here." Tyler patted Brad's wet cheeks, concerned. "Dada's sad." "No, baby. Dada's happy. So happy." We ordered pizza, let Tyler stay up past bedtime, watched him play with his dinosaurs. Normal evening activities that felt miraculous after months of uncertainty. The legal victory was ours, but more than that, Tyler's family was secured. Rachel called that night desperate for news. When we told her the outcome, she broke down completely, not in sadness, but relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my baby, for giving him what I couldn't." "Brad saved him," I corrected, "by being his father when it mattered. Tell him I'm grateful, that I'm getting better, that someday I'll be worthy of being Tyler's mother again. Tell him yourself, you have years to make amends. Use them." As I hung up, I realized something. We'd won more than custody. We'd won the chance to redefine family on our own terms. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. Messy and complicated and bound by choice, rather than just blood. Tyler would grow up with a father who chose him, an aunt who protected him, grandparents who learned to share him, and someday a mother who would emerge from prison determined to earn her place in his life. It wasn't the victory any of us had imagined when this started, but it was the one Tyler needed. And in the end, that's all that mattered. Spring arrived with unusual warmth that year, as if nature itself was ready for renewal after our long winter of revelations and legal battles. I stood in my backyard watching Brad push Tyler on the swing set we'd installed the week before. Tyler's laughter rang out pure and untainted by the adult dramas that had swirled around his young life. It had been 2 months since the custody verdict, 2 months of establishing new routines, new boundaries, new definitions of normal. The healing hadn't been instant or easy, but it was happening one day at a time. My phone buzzed with a text from my therapist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, confirming our appointment that afternoon. I'd been seeing her weekly since the trial ended, finally ready to process not just recent events, but years of buried emotions about my marriage, my infertility, my relationship with Rachel. "You ready to head inside, buddy?" Brad called to Tyler. "Aunt Blair has to go to her appointment." Tyler protested with the single-minded determination of a 2-year-old. "More swing, 5 more minutes." Brad negotiated, catching my eye with a smile. He looked healthier than he had in months. The stress lines had softened, the constant tension in his shoulders had eased. Winning custody had given him permission to just be Tyler's dad without looking over his shoulder. Those 5 minutes turned into 15, but I didn't mind. Watching them together, seeing the simple joy of a father and son playing, felt like medicine for wounds I was still discovering. At therapy, Dr. Martinez settled into her chair across from me. "How are you feeling this week?" "Surprisingly good," I admitted. "Is that wrong? My husband is dead, my sister's in prison. I'm helping raise her child who isn't even my biological nephew. I should be a mess." "Should" is a dangerous word. There's no correct way to process trauma. Tell me about feeling good. I thought about it. I sold the house yesterday, the one Marcus and I shared. I thought it would devastate me, but when I signed the papers, all I felt was relief. "What are you relieved about?" "No more pretending. That house was a museum to a marriage that never really existed. Every room had memories, but now I know half of them were lies. The dinner parties where Marcus charmed everyone while hiding massive debts, the bedroom where we cried about infertility while he was already sleeping with my sister, the office where he hid evidence of his double life." "And where will you go?" "I bought a smaller place. A cottage, really. 3 bedrooms, big yard, good school district. Brad and Tyler are actually moving into the apartment above the garage. We figured it would be easier sharing childcare duties." Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant decision. How do you feel about having such close proximity to reminders of Marcus's betrayal?" "Tyler isn't a reminder of betrayal. He's just Tyler. And Brad, we've become friends through all this. Real friends. We understand each other in ways other people can't." "Be careful about trauma bonding," she cautioned gently. "Shared pain can create intense connections that might not be sustainable once the crisis passes." I nodded but privately disagreed. What Brad and I had built went beyond trauma. We'd chosen to transform our pain into something positive for Tyler's sake. That took more than just shared suffering. It took courage, commitment, and a willingness to redefine everything we thought we knew about family. That evening, Brad and I worked together to pack up Tyler's room at my old house. He was spending the night with my parents, giving us time to organize the move. As I folded tiny clothes and wrapped toy dinosaurs, the domesticity of it struck me. "This is weird, right?" I said suddenly. "Playing house with my dead husband's secret baby and my sister's ex." Brad laughed, the sound still rare enough to be precious. "When you put it like that, we sound like a soap opera." "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in one. The evil sister, the cheating husband, the secret baby, the courtroom drama, all we're missing is amnesia and an evil twin." "Please don't jinx us," Brad said, mock serious. "I cannot handle any more plot twists." We worked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Brad spoke quietly. "I've been thinking about dating again." Something twisted in my chest. "Oh, not now, not soon, but eventually. Tyler deserves to see healthy relationships, and I don't want to be alone forever." "You should," I said, meaning it despite the odd discomfort. "You deserve happiness after everything Rachel put you through." "So do you. Have you thought about it dating?" I had, actually. Dr. Martinez had suggested I consider what I wanted my future to look like beyond just surviving the present. Maybe someday. Right now, I'm still figuring out who I am without Marcus. 35 years old and starting over. 35 is young, Brad pointed out. Plenty of time for new beginnings. Is that what we're doing, beginning again? He held up a photo we'd found tucked in Tyler's crib. The 3 of us at the park last week, Tyler on Brad's shoulders while I made silly faces to get him to laugh. We looked happy, like a family. I think we're doing something better, Brad said. We're not trying to recreate what we lost. We're building something entirely new. 2 weeks later, we were settled in the cottage. Tyler adapted with the resilience of toddlers, mainly concerned that his dinosaur collection made the journey safely. The Chen family had their first official visitation, a stilted but civil afternoon, where Grace taught Tyler to count in Mandarin while William took endless photos. "He has Ryan's nose," Grace said, wistfully watching Tyler play. "And Rachel's stubborn streak," I added, trying to bridge the gap. Emma, the pediatrician's sister, had brought medical history forms. "Just so you know what to watch for genetically. Ryan had mild asthma as a child, nothing serious." It was awkward, these strangers cataloging Tyler's features and potential futures. But it was also necessary. Tyler deserved to know all parts of his heritage, even the complicated ones. After they left, Tyler was cranky and clingy, the disruption to routine affecting him. Brad and I tag-teamed bedtime Tyler, fighting sleep with everything he had. "Why don't you sing to him?" I suggested. "You have a good voice." Brad flushed. "Rachel used to make fun of my singing." Rachel was an idiot about a lot of things. Sing. Hesitantly, Brad began singing, "You Are My Sunshine," his voice soft but true. Tyler's eyes grew heavy, his little body relaxing. By the second verse, he was asleep. "See," I whispered, "perfect." We tiptoed out of Tyler's room, leaving the dinosaur nightlight glowing softly. In the hallway, Brad paused. "Thank you for everything. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "We got through it together," I corrected. "That's what family does." "Is that what we are, family?" I thought about it. Not the family any of us had planned or expected, but family nonetheless. "Yeah, I think we are." The healing process wasn't linear. Some days grief would hit me unexpectedly. I'd find one of Marcus's cufflinks and remember the man I thought I'd married. Or I'd see sisters shopping together and ache for the relationship Rachel and I had destroyed. But there were more good days than bad now. Days when Tyler's laughter filled the cottage, when Brad and I successfully assembled furniture while drinking wine and arguing about instructions, when my parents visited and didn't make everything awkward, when the future seemed less like something to survive and more like something to anticipate. My support group for betrayal survivors had grown from 5 members to 50. We met weekly in the basement of a community center, sharing stories and strategies for rebuilding after deception. I'd worried I was too damaged to help others, but Dr. Martinez reminded me that wounded healers often made the most impact. "The fact that you're still processing your own trauma doesn't disqualify you from helping others," she said. "If anything, it makes you more authentic. You're not preaching from a place of perfect healing. You're companioning others through the mess." One evening, a new member named Carol shared her story. Husband of 30 years affair with her best friend, financial devastation. The familiar themes made my heart ache. "How do you ever trust again?" she asked the group. "How do you believe in love when the person who promised to cherish you could lie so easily?" I thought about Brad singing Tyler to sleep, about Julia's fierce loyalty through the legal battles, about my parents choosing to support me despite their own heartbreak over Rachel. "You start small," I said. "You notice the people who show up consistently, who keep their small promises, who choose truth even when lies would be easier. Trust isn't rebuilt all at once. It's accumulated through thousands of tiny, honest moments." After group, Carol approached me. "Your situation sounds so complicated. Do you really think you can heal from all that?" "I'm not trying to heal back to who I was," I admitted. That person believed in perfect marriages and sibling loyalty and biological destiny. This version of me knows life is messier, but maybe that's not a wound. Maybe it's wisdom. That night, I found Brad on my back porch, baby monitor in hand, staring at the stars. "Couldn't sleep. Just thinking. The adoption should be final next month. Tyler will legally be my son. No one can take him away." "How does that feel?" "Terrifying. Amazing. Right." He paused. "I've been thinking about changing his last name. Not to Mitchell. That's Rachel's name, and it carries..." Wait. I was thinking Sullivan Mitchell. Honor both sides. You want to give him Marcus's name, even knowing? Marcus was flawed, deeply, but he was supposed to be Tyler's father in everyone's mind, and you're his aunt, his guardian. Sullivan connects him to you. The Mitchell keeps a piece of his mother. Combined, it's all of us, his whole complicated family. I was touched beyond words. Tyler Sullivan Mitchell, I like it. Good, because I already had the paperwork drawn up. I just needed your blessing. We sat in comfortable silence, the spring night soft around us. Inside, Tyler slept peacefully, unaware of the conversations shaping his future. Tomorrow there would be challenges, visits from the Chens, updates from Rachel Navigation of our unconventional arrangement. But tonight we had peace. We had progress. We had proof that families could be rebuilt from the strangest materials, betrayal transformed into protection loss, transformed into unexpected gains wounds, transformed into wisdom. The healing process would continue for years. Some scars would always remain. But as I sat with Brad planning Tyler's future under stars that didn't care about our human dramas, I realized something profound. We weren't just healing. We were growing. Into people Marcus and Rachel never could have imagined. Into the family Tyler needed us to be. Into versions of ourselves that could hold both grief and joy, betrayal and trust endings and beginnings. And that felt like the greatest victory of all. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Of all the places to discover you're pregnant, the family court building where we were finalizing Tyler's adoption seemed almost poetically absurd. Blair. You okay in there? Brad's voice came through the door. The judge is ready for us. Just a minute. I managed shoving the test into my purse. This was Tyler's day. The news that would upend everything could wait a few hours. In the courtroom, Tyler sat on Brad's lap wearing his tiny suit playing with a toy truck, while Judge Hawthorne smiled warmly. The same judge who'd granted Brad custody was now making it permanent. Tyler Sullivan Mitchell. She said formally, "It is my pleasure to finalize your adoption today. Brad Mitchell, you are now legally, permanently, and irrevocably this child's father." Tyler looked up at the sound of his name. Dada! Yeah, buddy, forever and ever. The small ceremony was perfect. My parents were there. Brad's mother had flown in from Arizona. Even Julia had taken time from her busy practice to witness the moment. We took pictures, Tyler squirming and reaching for the camera. Brad's smile brighter than I'd ever seen it. But through it all, my mind kept circling back to the test in my purse. Pregnant. After years of failed fertility treatments, after accepting childlessness, after Marcus's death, and everything that followed, my body had decided now was the time to finally work properly. The IVF embryos. We'd created 5 during our last treatment cycle 2 years ago. Marcus had convinced me to keep them frozen just in case. After his death, I'd forgotten about them entirely until the clinic called about storage fees. On impulse, maybe driven by watching Tyler grow and feeling that maternal ache, I decided to try one more time. Just one embryo. Just to say I'd tried everything. I hadn't told anyone. The chances were so slim, my history so full of failure. I'd planned to grieve privately when it didn't work, then let the dream go forever. Except it had worked. 6 weeks along, according to my calculations. A baby that was mine and Marcus's conceived in hope before the lies carried in truth after them. Earth to Blair, Brad said, waving a hand in front of my face. Where'd you go? We're heading to lunch to celebrate. Sorry, just emotional. It's a big day. The restaurant was cheerful chaos. Tyler threw crackers with remarkable accuracy, while Brad's mother told embarrassing childhood stories. My dad made a touching toast about chosen families. Julia regaled us with tales from her latest case. Normal, happy family celebration sounds washed over me while I tried to process my secret. Halfway through lunch, Tyler had a meltdown. 2-year-old exhaustion combined with too much stimulation. Brad tried to soothe him, but Tyler wanted nothing to do with Daddy. He reached for me instead, crying, "Bware, Bware," his version of my name. I took him, automatically settling him against my chest, where he hiccuped into silence. The weight of him, solid and trusting, made my eyes burn. In 6.5 months, there would be another weight to hold, another child who would need me. "You're good with him," Brad's mother observed. "Natural maternal instincts." Brad caught something in my expression. He'd become too good at reading me over these months of shared parenting. When Tyler fell asleep in my arms and couldn't be moved without waking, Brad suggested I take him home while he handled the rest of lunch. Back at the cottage, I laid Tyler in his crib, then sat on my bathroom floor and took 3 more pregnancy tests. All positive, all terrifyingly, wonderfully positive. I made an appointment with my OB for the next day, needing medical confirmation before I could truly believe it. That evening, after Tyler was in bed, Brad found me on the back porch again. It had become our spot for difficult conversations. "What's going on?" he asked without preamble. "You've been off all day." I could have lied, delayed, kept the secret longer, but we'd built our strange little family on truth after too many lies. "I'm pregnant." The words hung between us like a physical thing. Brad's face went through multiple expressions before landing on shock. I thought, "You and Marcus couldn't—" "The frozen embryos from our last IVF cycle. I had one transferred 6 weeks ago. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't think it would work. But it did. But it did." He was quiet for so long I started to panic. This changed everything. Our careful balance, our co-parenting arrangement, the future we'd been building. "Wow," he finally said. How do you feel about it?" "Terrified, elated, guilty, confused." I laughed shakily. I'm carrying my dead husband's baby while helping raise the child he thought was his with my sister's ex-husband. Even for us, this is complicated. "When you put it like that," Brad rubbed his face. "What do you need? What can I do?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far. I just found out this morning right before court." "You sat through Tyler's adoption knowing this, Blair. You should have said something." "It was Tyler's day. He deserved that moment uncomplicated." Brad moved closer, studying my face. "This is what you wanted. What you and Marcus tried so hard for." "I know. The timing is just—" "Perfect," he interrupted. "The timing is perfect." I stared at him. "How can you say that?" "Because Tyler will have a cousin, a real biological cousin to grow up with. Because you've proven over these months that you're an incredible mother figure. Because maybe something good should come from all the pain." This changes everything. Our living arrangement, the dynamics. So everything's already changed multiple times. We adapt. That's what we do. His easy acceptance broke something in me. I started crying, months of suppressed grief and hope pouring out. Brad held me while I sobbed, steady and present like he'd been through everything else. "I'm scared," I admitted when the tears slowed. "What if I'm not enough? What if this baby grows up resenting the circumstances? What if?" "What if they grow up loved?" Brad countered. "What if they have you as a mother, Tyler as a cousin brother, me as whatever weird uncle figure I'll be? What if we just keep building this strange, beautiful family?" Over the next days, the news rippled out. My parents were cautiously thrilled, though I saw worry in their eyes. Brad's mother offered to extend her visit to help. Julia immediately started researching family law implications. The OB confirmed everything looked good. "Given your history, we'll monitor closely," Dr. Patel said. "But this embryo seems determined to stick around." Telling Rachel was the hardest. She was allowed 1 video call per week, now her good behavior earning small privileges. When I shared the news, her face crumpled. "Marcus's baby, you're having Marcus's baby." "Yes." "It should have been mine," she whispered. "That was supposed to be my life. Marcus's wife, Marcus's baby." "Rachel." "No, I know. I know what I did. I destroyed any chance of that life, but it still hurts." She took a shaky breath. Are you happy? I think so. It's complicated. Everything with us is complicated. A ghost of her old smile appeared. Tyler will love being a big cousin. He's so good with other kids at the prison daycare. She'd been working in the children's center reading to kids during visits. It was part of her rehabilitation, learning to give without taking. How's Brad handling it? She asked. Better than I expected. He's been incredible. He always was. I just couldn't see it. She paused. Blair, don't let him go. Whatever weird thing you've built together, don't let him go. He's the best thing that came from my mistakes. That night, Brad and I sat with Tyler while he played before bed. He'd started talking more little sentences that delighted us. Dada look big truck. Where cookie. We need to figure out logistics, Brad said. Baby-proofing for a newborn while Tyler's in full toddler destruction mode. Sleeping arrangements, division of duties. You don't have to. This isn't your responsibility. Tyler's my son. This baby will be his family. That makes it my responsibility, too. He watched Tyler crash 2 dinosaurs together with sound effects. Plus, I told you I've been thinking about dating single dad with complicated co-parenting arrangement, including pregnant ex-sister-in-law, isn't exactly a selling point. Might as well wait until things settle. Things never settle with us. True, so I guess I'm stuck. But he was smiling. Have you thought about names? It's too early, too much can go wrong. But if it goes right, I thought about it. If it's a girl, Hope Margaret after my grandmother. If it's a boy, I hesitated. Maybe Thomas call him Tom. Not Marcus Jr. No, this baby deserves their own identity, not to carry the weight of their father's choices. Tom Sullivan, Hope Sullivan, I like it. As the weeks passed, my pregnancy progressed normally. The morning sickness was brutal but manageable. Tyler appointed himself belly patter, gently touching my slowly growing bump and saying, "Baby, be in wonder." Brad baby-proofed with the intensity of someone preparing for war. The Chen family visited for Tyler's second birthday. They'd settled into their role as extended family, bringing gifts and stories about Ryan. Grace still watched Tyler with hungry eyes, but she'd accepted the boundaries. "You're pregnant." Emma noticed immediately, her doctor's eye catching what I thought I'd been hiding under loose shirts. Yes, it's a long story. Another baby for Tyler to grow up with. That's wonderful. But I saw the calculations in her eyes, the questions about paternity, about how this would affect their grandson's life. The party was small but perfect. Tyler, chocolate-faced and hyped on sugar, played with his new toys, while adults navigated the complex dynamics we'd created. My parents chatting with Brad's mother, the Chens taking photos, Brad and I working in easy synchronization to manage the chaos. That night, after everyone left and Tyler had crashed from his sugar high, I felt the baby move for the first time, a flutter like butterflies made of hope. "Brad," I called softly. He was cleaning up wrapping paper, always thoughtful about the mundane tasks. "Come here." He sat beside me on the couch. I took his hand, placed it on my bump. We waited. Then there it was again, stronger this time. Was that the baby moving? His face transformed with wonder. "Hi, little one. I'm your Uncle Brad. We'll figure out titles later, but I'm here. We're all here." It was then I knew. However unconventional, however complicated we were going to be, okay. Tyler would grow up surrounded by love with a cousin sibling to share the journey. The baby would enter a family already practiced at choosing love over convention. My phone buzzed. A text from the realtor about the house Brad was considering buying next door. Because of course he was. Our cottage compound was expanding, creating space for whatever configuration the future demanded. "Should we tell Tyler he's going to be a big cousin tomorrow?" Brad asked. "Let's wait until after the next ultrasound. Make sure everything's okay." "It will be," Brad said with quiet confidence. "This family specializes in making impossible things work." As if in agreement, the baby fluttered again. A new beginning built on the ashes of old endings. Marcus would never meet this child he'd wanted so desperately. Rachel would miss years of Tyler's life. The traditional family we'd all imagined was gone. But in its place, something stronger was growing. A family bound by choice, tested by tragedy, committed to truth. Tyler would have stories about his biological father in Toronto, his mother working toward redemption, his adoptive father who chose him every day, and his aunt who became his guardian. The new baby would join this narrative, adding their own chapter to our unconventional story. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. The new beginning had already begun. The call came at 3:17 in the morning, 2 days before my scheduled C-section. Brad's panicked voice cut through my sleep-foggy brain. Tyler's burning up. 104. I'm taking him to the ER. I was 8.5 months pregnant, huge and unwieldy, but nothing could have kept me from that hospital. I arrived to find Brad pacing the pediatric waiting room, Tyler limp in his arms. They think it's just a virus, but they're running tests. Brad said, his voice tight with fear. He just keeps crying for you. I took Tyler carefully, my massive belly making everything awkward. But the moment he was in my arms, he settled slightly. Where? He whimpered. Hurt. I know, baby, I know. We spent 6 hours in that ER, Tyler's fever finally breaking as dawn light crept through the windows. Brad and I took turns holding him, walking him, singing the songs he loved. When the doctor finally declared it was indeed just a virus and we could go home, we were exhausted, but relieved. In the car, Brad suddenly laughed. We're really doing this, aren't we? Middle of the night, ER runs, taking turns with a sick kid. We're a real family. The realist, I agreed, one hand on Tyler's car seat, the other on my belly where my own baby was doing gymnastics. 2 days later, Hope Margaret Sullivan entered the world at 7 pounds 2 ounces with a shock of dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly. The C-section had gone smoothly, Dr. Patel declaring everything textbook perfect. Brad brought Tyler to meet her that afternoon. We'd prepared him as much as you could prepare a 2-year-old, but nothing could have predicted his reaction. Tyler approached the bassinet cautiously, Brad lifting him to see better. Hope was sleeping, tiny fists curled perfect in that way newborns are. Baby Hope. Tyler whispered like he understood this was a sacred moment. Then very gently he leaned over and kissed her forehead. Love you, baby Hope. Brad and I exchanged looks over his head, both of us tearing up. Whatever complex adult emotions swirled around these children's origins, Tyler had just claimed Hope as his own, with toddler simplicity. The next months blurred together in the way life with a newborn and toddler does. Endless diapers, scattered sleep, Tyler's adjustment to sharing attention, Hope's colic that had us walking the floors at 2 a.m. Brad had bought the house next door as planned, but spent most nights at the cottage anyway, our theoretical boundaries dissolving in the face of practical needs. When Hope was 3 months old, we received news that shifted our world again. Rachel was being released 6 months early for good behavior and participation in rehabilitation programs. She'd have strict parole requirements, mandatory therapy, and supervised visits with Tyler, but she was coming home. How do you feel about that? Dr. Martinez asked during my session. Terrified, hopeful, protective. I don't know if I'm ready to have her back in our lives. You don't have to be ready. You just have to take it one day at a time. Rachel's release day came in late spring. My parents picked her up while Brad and I prepared Tyler. He remembered her from video calls but hadn't seen her in person in over 18 months, more than half his life. When the car pulled up, I saw my sister for the first time since that day at the lake cabin. She was thinner, her hair, its natural brown, instead of the highlighted blonde she'd maintained for years. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The calculating hardness was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen since we were children. Vulnerability. Hi, she said simply, standing at the door like a stranger. Tyler peeked out from behind Brad's legs. Mama! Rachel's composure cracked. She dropped to her knees, arms open but not reaching, letting Tyler set the pace. Hi, baby boy. Mama missed you so much. Tyler looked up at Brad, who nodded encouragingly. It's okay, buddy, that's your mama. Slowly, Tyler approached. Rachel stayed perfectly still until he was close enough to touch her face. "Mama said—" "Happy tears," Rachel managed. "Mama's crying happy tears." The reunion was careful, supervised by the social worker who would oversee Rachel's reintegration. Tyler warmed up slowly, showing her his toys, telling her about baby Hope in his increasingly complex sentences. Rachel listened with desperate attention, soaking in every word. When Hope woke from her nap, I brought her out. Rachel's face cycled through emotions as she looked at the baby who should have been hers with Marcus. "She's beautiful," Rachel said softly. "She looks like you." "She has Marcus's eyes." "No, she has your strength. I can already see it." Rachel met my gaze. "I'm sorry for everything. I know that's not enough, will never be enough, but I'm sorry." "I know. Can I hold her?" I hesitated, every protective instinct screaming. But this was my sister, Hope's aunt, Tyler's mother. We couldn't move forward without trust. I placed Hope in Rachel's arms. She held my daughter with the same desperate care she'd shown with Tyler, tears flowing freely. "Hi, Hope. I'm your Aunt Rachel. I'm going to try really hard to be worthy of knowing you." The weeks that followed were delicate navigation. Rachel lived in a halfway house at first, then a small apartment my parents helped her rent. She got a job at a local nursery, finding peace in plants and growth. Her visits with Tyler gradually increased, always with Brad or me present. She was different. The jealousy that had poisoned her was being actively addressed in therapy. She spoke about her addiction to validation, her need to be chosen, her inability to see her own worth without comparison. It was painful growth, but it was real. Tyler adapted with the resilience of children. Mama Rachel was someone who visited, who played with him, who cried sometimes, but always said she loved him. Dada was who he lived with, who tucked him in, who chased away bad dreams. Aunt Blair was who he went to for comfort, who held baby Hope, who made the best grilled cheese sandwiches. One evening when Hope was 6 months old and Tyler was nearing 3, we all ended up at my cottage for dinner. Not planned, just the organic flow of our strange family. Brad was cooking while I fed Hope. Rachel was building blocks with Tyler. My parents had stopped by with groceries. It was beautifully, chaotically normal. "This is nice," Rachel said quietly while Tyler ran to show Brad his tower. "Weird, but nice." "The weirdest," I agreed, "but it works." "I've been thinking—" She started, then stopped. "Never mind." "What?" "I've been thinking about dating again. My therapist says I'm ready to try healthy relationships, but who's going to want this?" She gestured around. A woman fresh out of federal prison with a son being raised by her ex-husband and sister, whose baby daddy is dead. Someone who sees who you are now, not who you were then. You really believe people can change that much? I looked at her, really looked. The sister who had betrayed me in the worst possible way.